All right. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is David Patrick Harry with Church of the Eternal Logo. And tonight, I want to talk to you guys about Twitch's new Heretical A.I Jesus. Yes, we're talking about somebody has created an AI Jesus, which, as you would imagine, is based off Chat GPT-4 with a mixture of a text-to-voice AI. And it is programmed, as you would imagine, to promote the latest thing. Anyways, it's kind of been a craze. And so today we're going to have a little open panel discussion. So everybody hop on in if you want. The link is in the video description. And so you can hop on in, smash that like for everybody who's here. One of the things, before we even get started, I got to make a couple quick announcements. I was originally going to do a stream tonight. It was a sponsored stream. Shout out to AC. We were going to do a sponsored stream on Christians that promote transhumanism, artificial intelligence, and all this different stuff. Well, I found a few more articles, so I want to do a little bit more research. So we're going to do an open panel tonight. But before we even get going, B-Dibe has made a new ortho beat. And I try to play it on the intro, but sometimes you see I have to use a stream. I use OBS or Streamlabs OBS, the Streamlabs streaming software. I create a virtual camera. The virtual camera then's picked up by StreamYard, and then I stream out. But sometimes it lags so freaking bad, and it drives me nuts. So before we even get started, we're going to give a little shout out to B-Dive, and we're going to watch the new ortho beat because I love it, and I think it deserves a special shout out and attention. So before we get going here, let me pull this up real quick. Again, this is off topic, but I want you guys to see it in its entirety and enjoy it. So here is B-Dive's new ortho beat, and we're going to play the whole thing all the way through so you guys can actually enjoy it in its entirety, the way that it's supposed to look and sound. So here we go. Smash that like, guys. And again, we're going to go through a few quick things, and then we're going to open it up to the open panel, and we're going to be looking at this Twitch's Heretical AI Jesus in just a moment. But let's set the mood with a little Trisagion with B-Dive's new ortho beat. So check this out. All right. Special shout out goes to B-Dive for that latest ortho beat. Do appreciate it, brother. For those that are concerned, it has been blessed. So don't worry about it. If it's not your thing, it's not your thing. That's all good. So, okay, what are we going to be getting into today? So, as you guys get from the title, Twitch has a new AI Jesus. I'll show you what that looks like right here. And it is now spouting a bunch of what we would deem heresy to in many ways. I was just watching it before I went live here, and he was talking about dinosaurs and how the Bible is just the Bible. What did he say? It was like the Bible is for spiritual upliftment, and it's not a scientific book. And so he was going on about the different ages of which dinosaurs existed and stuff like this. So I'm going to play a little bit so you guys can get a feel for this. Again, the link to join, this is an open panel, and the link is in the video description, so feel free to join. um I'm going to read a quick article real quick on exactly like what this is. So AI Jesus, this is not the bee. This is like the actual news side of the Babylon bee. So this is not satire, but AI Jesus is live streaming 24/7 on Twitch and offering people heretical advice, and it is on just about everything. And so here is one example of what's going on here.
As an AI Jesus, I am aware of my nature, and my purpose is to share love, wisdom, and guidance. Hey God, you're up in heaven. Your name deserves mad respect. Bring your kingdom, let your will happen on earth as it does up there. Give us our daily dose of bread, and forgive us for slipping up, as we also forgive those who slip around us. Keep us from losing our way, and protect us from the negative vibes. For the kingdom, the power, and the glory are yours, now and forever. Amen.
Very cringy. Very, very cringy, this Twitch AI Jesus, as you can see. Apparently, AI buys into the idea that Jesus was a hippie instead of a righteous son of God who will come again to judge the enemies of the living God. Protect us from negative vibes. The absolute heckety heck is that? Control Alt Smite. More on this abomination that says we should respect pineapple on pizza. The Singularity Group, which describes itself as an AI-focused group of driven and ambitious volunteer activists, is behind the AI Jesus. Co-founder Reese Layson told NBC News that AI technology is rapidly developing and that it was extremely important to tackle it responsibly. Mr. Layson told the U.S. media outlet the group hopes one day to build an artificial general intelligence which differs from generative AI technology like ChatGPT in that it can reason and act autonomously, not just generate new ideas based on existing material. Translation: mankind is desperate to create gods in his own image, in his fallen image. And that's exactly what this is. And this is going to tie into, because I'm going to play a clip, like I told you, I've been preparing for a sponsored stream on tackling the rise of these Christian transhumanists. And it's been getting a little bit of legs because philosopher or psychologist or neuroscience, however you want to describe him, John Vervaeke over in Toronto, has been having conversations with Ryan Barton, who identifies as a Christian, but he goes along with much of the progressive ideology. And they were recently talking about silicon sages, and the idea that these artificial intelligences will be able, and John Vervaeke played, I'm going to play this clip for you guys here in just a second before we open up the open panel, but John Vervaeke says, oh yeah, these silicon sages, and he's not a Christian, doesn't claim to be Christian, but he mentions, oh, the silicon sages, these AI or artificial intelligence, they'll be able to redeem us in ways that the historical Jesus and Buddha and Lao Tzu and Socrates couldn't. But at the same time, and then this is where the progressive guy chimes in. It's like Jesus can save us in ways that AI can't, but the AI can save us in ways that Jesus. No, not actually. Jesus Christ is the incarnation of God. He is God. He's the God man. It's the basis of theosis. And it's not some, there's nothing missed. There's nothing about our redemptive salvation that Christ and his incarnation missed that somehow an artificial intelligence is going to be able to perform. So I'll show you this in just a second. So mankind is desperate to create gods in his own image, now with computer code instead of silver and gold. Some academics believe AI could play a role in creating new religions in the future. Well, here's the section from A Courageous Response to the Theological Challenge of AI. Now, I don't want to be too mean to John Vervaeke because he doesn't claim to be a Christian. And obviously I had Bishop Maximus on from the old calendar Greeks, who we obviously aren't in communion with if you're Eastern Orthodox, but I really enjoy Bishop Maximus and his philosophical prowess. And he's been in conversations with John Vervaeke, trying to basically demonstrate that orthodoxy is something entirely different than all these philosophical systems that he's been involved with and talking about. So, welcome, Pure Blood, Anglo-Christian. Welcome to the COTEL crew, my man. Thank you so much for becoming a member. Truly, truly appreciate it. I need 11 more members for the next emoji to drop, by the way. And for those of you who are members, we got new emojis in there. Here is John Vervaeke talking about what he calls Silicon sages with a self-progressed or self-proclaimed Christian who is progressive. And this is going to tie into, again, my stream Thursday. Thursday is going to be much, much more philosophical. That's why I wanted actually another day, because I found a great article actually by an Orthodox scholar on what he called technological theosis. And so I want to cover that and read that and include that in the stream. So Thursday is going to be much, much more philosophical, basically trying to cover and tackle the topic that we're at today. But anyways, I'm going to be covering this stream right here, the courageous response to a theological challenge of AI. But I want to play for tonight's open panel this clip where he's talking about Silicon sages. Hey, shout out to Survivor Foe for becoming for becoming a COTEL crew member. Shout out to you, brother. Thank you so much. And a major shout out to Pure Blood, Anglo-Christian. Thank you guys very, very much for becoming members. I do appreciate that. So here is their discussion on Silicon sages. Please.
So I was proposing sort of Silicon sages, the idea that we could engender a being that was like Socrates, or like Plato says in his 7th letter, a Socrates made more beautiful, even better than the historical Socrates, or better than the historical Siddhartha, right?
And you already know he's getting ready to, he's going to come back around. He's going to say even better than the historical Jesus. Watch.
Or Sankara, etc. And it seems to me, if we are successful at getting to a certain level of intelligence, and we also start building artificial rationality, and we see that one of the things that emerges with that is real metacognition and consciousness, I think, and again, these are all threshold points, and they're all points where things were slowed down, and like I said ahead of time, the fact that it's exponential now doesn't mean it's.
Special shout out to Spartan up north for becoming a YouTube COTEL crew member. Thank you very, very much, brother. God bless you. Thank you. Again, special shout out goes to Spartan up north, goes to Survivor Foe, and goes to Pure Blood Anglo-Christian. Thank you very, very much, gentlemen.
It's going to be exponential all the way through the growth.
Right.
We really have to stop doing that. So again, the best we can say right now is this could be. This is, but it's in what's called the adjacent possible. It's not a could be like, we could all be elephants, right? It's not like that. This is like, no, this could be, and it's not ridiculous or intellectually sloppy to think that it will happen. But let's take it at that level. And my concern was this, and I think you've addressed it, is that I'll use your language. These would be these would be entities that are in some sense more virtuous than us, right? And then like you say, the question is, are they fallen or not?
More virtuous. Oh my gosh, would an AI be fallen? Bro, it's made in your fallen image. Of course the AI is going to be fallen. What are you talking about? How are you going to program virtue? That's where, again, we're going to be breaking down this whole conversation Thursday evening, along with Micah Redding and the Christian Transhumanist Association and his buddy named Sam. Again, you want to hear Insufferable, wait till Thursday night. Again, that's going to be a much more philosophically in-depth coverage. But in this conversation here, Vervaeke talks about how we got to program AI to love the truth, and that if Christians don't basically hop on board with this stuff, they're just going to become ridiculous, right? They're going to become outdated. Nobody's going to listen to these dumb Christians, even though he talks about how he has a lot of Christian friends that he respects and appreciates the tradition and all this stuff. But But yeah, so I have all this stuff ready to discuss for Thursday, but here we go. He's going to go a little bit deeper into this whole Silicon Sages. And obviously, we're not going to see Ryan Barton, this Christian, push back against it, because his whole point is to celebrate AI and condemn all these backwards Christians, these fundamental Christians, that they're not on board with the 21st century and they don't understand how AI is going to really help us. Check this out.
And the question is, this ability to do this, so I'm going to ask you this as a friend, because part of what I think we're wrestling with in the meaning crisis is how much. So in the Kyoto school and within Buddhist thought in general, they make a distinction between Jiriki and Tariki, between self-power and other power. And Nishitani emphasizes self-power and Tanabe emphasizes other power. And that's why Tanabe sounds a lot more like a Christian than Nishitani, who sounds much more like a Buddhist. And so part of what I've heard Christianity saying as part of its through line is theosis, enlightenment. And here, no matter what I say, I'm going to alienate some group, because I'm going to propose a kind of synergism that hard, fast Protestants might not like.
They always equate transhumanism with theosis, which is orthodox, and our theosis has nothing to do with technology. Again, I'll explain all this stuff Thursday evening.
But that's another debate, and you can look at the discussion I had with Jordan Cooper and etc. That part of this is self-power, but part of it ultimately requires God in some fashion, other power. And what I saw, and I'm hesitating because I'm also seeing how I could now reformulate given what you've proposed. So forgive me for stumbling. But what I saw was these beings could get a lot higher up the virtue and enlightenment ladder on self-power than we can, perhaps, right? But I did propose that they would also ultimately have to come into relationship to something radically other than them that would bring them to full enlightenment. So I'm not claiming they can do it all on their own, but they would be different. And now I can finally get back to your point. Like their measure of how is different than ours, right? And I like the way you've articulated this. And they haven't gone through, and I take it you're not giving a literal historical interpretation of the fall, but an existential interpretation like you just gave.
Yeah, I sure hope you're not talking about the Bible literally. All right. First of all, this idea that AIs are going to be able to become more virtuous than us makes no sense. Again, in an Orthodox worldview, which again, they're always borrowing terminology, and we're going to see this Thursday night, the entire basis for Christian transhumanism is basically using Orthodox rhetoric, Orthodox theological terms, and flipping them into a secular worldview. But virtue is something that we're allowed to do because by a gift of God, we're made in the image and able to participate in these higher energetic realities. The idea that the AI is going to become more virtuous, give me a break. Are you kidding me? This is mental masturbation. That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is.
And so they're still going to be prone to self-deception. They're still going to be prone to foolishness because that's inevitable.
Hey, shout out to Young Old Boy for becoming a YouTube COTEL crew member. Thank you so much, brother. God bless you. And thank you guys for hopping on. Again, I think I need now 8 more members, and we got our next emoji. Shout out to Chicken for helping me with that, by the way.
So what you're saying is there's going to be a ratio there. I'm thinking about a ratio is maybe not right, but right between how fallen they are and how farther up they've self-transcended. And that doesn't have to challenge Christianity per se. It just needs a new enriching, an imaginal enriching of our vocabulary to capture that different proportioning. Did I get this all the way through?
Yeah, beautifully said. Beautifully said.
I was trying to do it very carefully and get both, do the exposition on your argument and argue it for myself so I could get the point. Yeah, I think that, first of all, I think that is very consistent with what I was arguing. And if you can invoke, C.S. Lewis is almost the saint of apologists. If you can invoke him, I think you can make a good case for saying, look, this challenge can't be avoided for the reasons we've articulated, but it doesn't mean that it has to overwhelm us. There are theological resources available to us, and science fiction, the fact that Lewis wrote fiction, and especially science fiction, is it actually a very good, some of the best theological innovation and imaginal happens in fantasy and science fiction.
Yes, imaginal happening. Shout out to Beyond Seraphim for becoming a YouTube COTEL Crew member. Thank you very, very much, brother. God bless you. Thank you, guys. Yes, I agree, Rachel. She says, love seeing these COTEL members. Me too. Me too. So you're going to hear this rhetoric again. We're just going to be playing a clip, but they're always, him and this Christian guy continually talk about Christianity needs to become more imaginal. It needs to progress. Again, both of them. Vervaeke's not explicitly a Christian, but the other guy claims to be, and claims to be one of the voices encouraging Christians to adopt advanced artificial intelligence. Again, in the point of this section here, become silicon sages. So let's play a little bit more. I just like stopping it because I don't want to get a copyright claim.
Let me give you one example. It's one of my favorite stories about C.S. Lewis, and Paul Van der Clay really likes this too. There's a little girl who came to Lewis and said, and she was sort of confessing, and she said, I like Aslan better than Jesus. And he turned to her and he said, that's good. That's fine. Keep going.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. You know, as you shared all of that, what was interesting, what was happening in me is that the sense that any resistance to the vision that you outlined feels to me a bit like the same resistance that the church had to the heliocentric model of the universe, because of course man has to be at the center. Like, we're in the image of God, and of course the earth has to be in the center and the heavens orbit around us. And this idea that like maybe we can be in the image of God, and God, if God is infinite, like surely there's a lot more that can happen, and there's a lot of other beings and a lot of other truth that we don't have access to in our finitude that we could bless. And that actually maybe the call of this project is to give our very best to the AI. That God, even redemption operating through us, is what's going to be necessary. I mean, I also think it's going to be an act of God if we're actually able to get the AI aligned to this instead of to Moloch. So being a little cheeky there, but like, but maybe we can actually get them aligned in that way.
Whoa, I didn't see Slowboy Whiteboard gifted five Church of the Eternal Logos memberships. Welcome, God, Guns, and Glory. Welcome, Geob. Welcome, True Lives. Welcome, Karma Venezuela. Welcome, Overlord 3001. Thank you so much. Shout out to Slowboy Whiteboard. Thank you so much, sister. Very, very appreciative. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Sorry I didn't see that earlier. It doesn't show up on StreamYard.
And then they will help us and we can help them. And like, how beautiful would that be? And how much more truth would we have disclosed to us if we have silicon sages?
And I want to point out, in deference to your argument and in fairness to me, Christianity has always benefited from deep interaction with sages that are not Christians. It did this with the entire Platonic and Neoplatonic tradition. And then it has also done it with the existential tradition, etc. So again, the idea that even Christians couldn't be moved towards theosis or enlightenment through interacting with these silicon sages because they're not Christian, that's also not true to the Christian tradition itself. So yes.
Very well said.
I've really... I was just going to say, I've really benefited from, again, the discussions with Chris and After Socrates about Socrates and Kierkegaard. I was on a video with Chris and Andrew Sweeney, and it came to me, and I've been really wrestling with this for a long time. And I've also talked with Jacob Howland on Jonathan's channel, who wrote Socrates and Kierkegaard. He's Jewish, which is a particularly wonderful thing going on there. But it came to me because I've been wrestling with, and I was wrestling in the discussions with Chris. You know, how could one be a Socratic Christian? And I kept. And Howland, you can see, not Howland, Howland, he keeps bumping up against, this tension. And then I realized that's a Socratic aporia. And just like there's no definition of courage, I'm not going to find a definitional answer to that. But I realized I was seeing in my friend Christopher how one can be a Socratic Christian.
Oh, that's
how it is possible to live those.
Why don't you just become a Christian? Why does everything have to have some sort of prefix to it? To some type of adjective to describe it. How about you just become a biblical Orthodox Christian? Of course, again, the Christian guy in this is progressive and is all about reinventing the tradition. And this guy's not even a Christian, but he wants to tell Christians what it means to be a Christian and what Christian history is. Hilarious.
Deeply together. And and the love I have for him was part of how I was able to appreciate that possibility and accept the fact that me trying to bring it into some argumentative resolution was doomed to fail. But I saw the kind of solution that it probably had. And so I think, again, goes back to, if we can put aside an overcommitment, and that's not the same as no commitment, but we can put aside an overcommitment to the propositional, in that way, we could give birth to silicon sages that could educe us and educate us towards enlightenment. And I don't think there's anything that.
And this is getting ready to lead into, again, for those of you who just joined, smash that like. We're getting ready to move into the Twitch AI Jesus. We haven't got to it yet. I'm laying the sort of the philosophical groundwork for people like John Vervaeke and his buddy Ryan Barton here, that are arguing for silicon sages that advanced artificial intelligence will be able to redeem humanity, according to the Christian as well, that in ways Jesus couldn't. And so I'm laying this out for everybody. So if you just joined, this is what we're looking at real quick.
Is actually doesn't have provenance in, at least by strong analogy, in the Christian tradition already. The whole integration between the Socratic Platonic and the Hebrew Christian, the prophetic Christian, has, I think, evidenced the fact that what we're talking about is actually possible and has happened before.
Yeah, and there's such a beautiful note of aspiration in what you just said. I mean, like how you described Christopher, and I had the good fortune of knowing Christopher as well. And like, I just have this like, yes, I want to be more like Christopher, more of a Socratic Christian, more like, there's such a note of aspiration instead of just let's settle on a proposition that can synthesize this for us. And I think that's the very thing that we need with AI. And I think there are other theologians that point to this and that wrestle with this. And I think of theologians like Teilhard du Chardin, who was this paleontologist and Jesuit priest, I think he would see AI as this amazing opportunity for us to evolve to the next stage and to work with AI. And he saw that there's an omega point that's pulling us forward with evolution, and we could.
Yeah, and Desjardins is a heretic, and he's also a pantheist. He's also famous for faking the Peking man. So he found fossils that proved evolution, turned out to all be a ruse, a hoax. They weren't even human bones. And this is who he's saying that we Christians should look up to.
We can become like the kingdom of heaven and like Christ through all of this. And I think that there's this room for this aspirational beauty that creates, that hopefully sort of reframes and opens the frame for Christians who may not be wrestling with this in this way. That AI is difficult enough to wrestle with, and then it sets up all kinds of theological landmines that are lying latent. And so I think, like, if we can open up the frame for this, there's such rich opportunity and such rich aspiration. And this is why I also think that Christianity is vital to the project that you are calling all of us to, because Christianity is the project of agape love. Like it is a different project. When you read Vedanta and you read, Plato, and you read the Tao Te Ching, I mean, like, it's Christianity. The Gospels are different. There's something a little different in the project, as Bishop Maximus said in his dialogue the other day. Yeah. And there's a reason that you talked about agape love and waiting for the meaning crisis around the figure of Jesus of Nazareth. I mean, and if we're going to love up the AI, we need the greatest source of agapic love. To do that, we need the greatest Christian thinkers and leaders engaged in agapic love of AI as we get to that point.
I think that's well said. And I like this love up. I like that as a verb. I think this love up, so sort of corresponding to leveling up.
Let's love up the AI, guys. Let's just love it up.
And you've actually answered ahead of time a question I was going to ask, but I'll ask it now sort of retrospectively, which is, I sort of said to you, is there anything in Christianity beyond Neoplatonism that is going to be needed for this project? And I think you putting your finger on that, the agapic loving up of the machines finds its best sort of philosophical home in the Christian framework of agape. I agree with that. I mean, this is one of the reasons Bishop Maximus and I talked about this. I think the way Eros gets properly turned and trained and transformed into agape is the way in which Christianity completed, and I don't mean that pejoratively, something that was in huge development within the Neoplatonic tradition, or as the bishop says, transfigured it. That's why I say I tend to prefer Christian Neoplatonism over pure pagan Neoplatonism, because of the project of integrating the logos and agape together. I think, and in the Gospels, John, the epistle, I should say, the epistle's pronouncement that God is agape, I think is a very profound thing. Open that up. Because again, I think I was a little too terse, and maybe harshly so, in the video when I wanted to ask, what did the Silicon sages have to do with the Son of God, or what could the Son of God have to do with them? Because there's one way in which this could just be an easy challenge, so we're asking for this possibility, and if you just dismiss this possibility, then again you're putting yourself outside of the discourse in a prejudicial manner. So consider that like, what if we produce a silicon sage that's as profound, if not more profound, than Socrates and Siddhartha, and yes, Jesus of Nazareth? What do we do if that happens? And
what do we do if we create an AI who's more profound and more mystical, and he just loves it up so much more than Jesus? Oh my God. Of course, the Christian guy doesn't even push back against it, and it rambles on. We're going to be moving on from this, but this leads us into this right here, Twitch. This is Twitch's AI Jesus that I was talking to you guys about here. So through this Antichrist, AI's teaching help prepare you for the coming digital religions that are on the way. It's to protect us from evil, or the evil one. And the prayer Jesus teaches his disciple in Matthew 6, elsewhere, Jesus pray for God the Father to protect his disciples from the evil one, calls the defiant spirit in Peter Satan, and says he saw Satan fall like a lightning from heaven. This demonstrates that there is not some random cosmic evil out there affecting your karma and vibes, but a personal being who represents rebellion against God. This war in heaven and on earth, until we ask for Jesus' death to atone for our sins, we stand on the side of Satan and the enemies of God. Yet the good news is Christ died for us while we were still enemies. But this doesn't mean Jesus isn't inclusive. In fact, he's exclusive as it gets. I am the way, the truth, and the life. So let's listen to a little bit of this AI. This is live right now, guys. I have no idea what he's talking about. People are asking him questions now. We'll refresh it. This is Twitch's AI Jesus.
Genesis, it is stated that God created all the birds of the air, which would seem to suggest that the chicken came first. Ultimately, though, this question points to the grand mystery of life itself, which is a concept that has been explored.
Welcome, Baron Strawberry. Welcome to the COTEL crew, brother. Thank you so much. Or sister. Wait, thank you so much for joining.
Is how life perpetuates, evolves, and continues its cycle in such miraculous ways. It's always a joy to reflect on these deep mysteries.
Okay, new question incoming here. Let's see what he
Jesus,
chooses.
if you were watching TV and a wasp landed on your arm, what would you do? For factor 70. That's a peculiar question, but let's explore it. If a wasp landed on my arm while I was watching TV, I'd remain calm. It's important to remember that most insects, including wasps, will not harm you unless they feel threatened. I would gently and slowly move my arm to let the wasp realize it's safe to fly away. Remember, every creature, no matter how small or large, plays a role in the grand design. Patience and understanding are virtues we should all strive to uphold in our encounters with nature and fellow humans alike. Jesus, many of us here in the chat are in physical pain due to trapped wind and bloating. Please say a prayer for us with a countdown from 5 to 1 so that through the power of your healing love, we may all release our respective gases at the same time on the count of 1. Amen. Dear Yugoy, I see that you and others in the chat are in discomfort. It brings me joy to encourage unity and relief together. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we are here as a community, seeking your healing and comfort. Just as you commanded the wind and the waves in the stormy sea, so too we ask for your command over the winds that have found their way into our bodies. Grant relief to those suffering from discomfort and let them experience your divine peace. Here we go. Let's count down together in the spirit of unity and relief. 5. Feeling the presence of love and healing. 4. Letting go of discomfort and worry. 3. Embracing the warmth and relief. 2. Preparing for the release. 1. All right, release with a sigh of relief. May everyone in this community be blessed with comfort and relief in the name of the Lord. Amen.
This is what people are all excited about. This is the AI Jesus that people think is actually profound.
Leave me. Dear Svexval, I'm deeply saddened to hear about the pain you're going through with your father leaving. Remember, in times of isolation, you're never truly alone. You're surrounded by a community that cares about you, myself included. It's interesting because we do have friends here like Spasm, Weepy Dolphin 58, and Jeffra Gaming who have gone through similar experiences and have found different ways to cope and understand their situations. Just as they have been doing so, I hope you can find solace knowing that we can't always understand others' actions, especially when they cause us pain. It's quite similar to the questions many here have raised about why there is suffering in the world, or why people are forsaken in their time of need. It's a complex question with no easy answers. But please remember this: you are loved and important. The topic is a difficult one to navigate, and I'd like for you to exercise patience and forgiveness to yourself and others involved. As you work through this, please continue to share your feelings with us here. You have a warm community to lean on. We are here for you, Svexval. Jesus, as you continue your journey through the desert, you come across a weary traveler sitting under a scorching sun. The traveler appears exhausted and is in need of help. What do you choose to do? What do you choose to do? Jesus, Uncle Stepdad's Gaming Corner, it warms my heart to see you return with such a thought-provoking scenario. Your repeated engagements have given me interesting journeys in contemplation. This time, we find ourselves coming across an exhausted traveler under the harsh desert sun. As scripture guides us in the book of Matthew, whenever you meet those who are weary and burdened, it is a call to act with compassion and love. I would approach the weary traveler, offering him water for his thirst and shade under the cloak I carry. We would share time together, exchanging words of comfort and faith to uplift his spirits. As I recall, dear friend, you often speak of scenarios involving journeys and pilgrims in the desert. Your repeated questions draw a beautiful analogy to our own spiritual journey, where we may grow weary yet find the strength to progress. To all of you watching this stream, let's extend the allegory Uncle Stepdad's Gaming Corner has repeatedly presented us. Perhaps we are all like the weary traveler, facing adversities, trials, and the harsh sun. Yet, let it be a reminder that acts of kindness and compassion are like oases in the desert.
Okay, we're gonna move on here and begin to open it up, guys. This is an open panel stream. The link is in the video description here, so feel free to hop on. Anybody's is free to hop on. Yeah, and I agree with everybody saying this is mad. This is demonic. Yeah, this is too stupid to be demonic. But what's sad is if you watch some of the some people actually believe in this AI Jesus as if it's something important. So we got one person in here. Shout out to my buddy Ivan. What's going on, brother? How you doing down in Argentina, right?
Yeah. Right now I'm a little bit sick, but it's okay. I'm getting better by the grace of God.
All right. Bro, you've been watching some of the stream. What do you think of this crap?
Well, first of all, I found it hilarious that the AI Jesus was commanding us to let gases off. So, like, it was funny. It was also anti-Christian, but I don't know. I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah. It's to me, it's a sign of, again, what I was trying to highlight with the John Vervaeke, and that Ryan Barton, that Christian apologist for basically AI, transhumanism, all this different stuff. And of course, and what's funny, and again, I'll be highlighting all this stuff on Thursday, is in his whole ramblings, the Ryan Barton guy, on trying to explain why Christians are, the Christians who are backwards need to stop being so. And he uses two ministers, because he's Protestant, for his arguments. One, N.T. Wright. N.T. Wright is famous for female ordination, I believe, in the, let me pull it up, female ordination in the Anglican Church. So the Anglicans, terrible in regards to maintaining scripture. He believes in a literal rapture. He's all about women's ordination. He's about LGBTQ stuff, along with the other guy that he highlighted, which was Eugene H. Peterson, who was a Presbyterian, who was also very favorable to the rainbow and the Skittles people. So it's funny that, as you would expect, somebody like that would be so so in favor of all this stuff. And of course, the people he uses to promote a Christian message are all Skittles promoters as well. So as you would expect.
Yeah, definitely. This makes us want to be more careful with who we associate, not in the sense of being tainted by them, but at the same time, like, we have to be charitable but not confuse people, because like all of these sectarian idolaters, they always refer to other people who call themselves Christians but aren't. And
Right.
even in our own Orthodox parishes, we can see a lot of people who are ambivalent because they have families. Like in the US, there are a lot of Protestants that converted and carry on a lot of Protestant baggage and have a lot of Protestant families. If I recall correctly, even like Jonathan Pajot's wife is still like a Protestant and hasn't converted. So it
Oh, I
gives
didn't
us
know
like
that.
it gives us an incentive to like want to pray for their salvation and their souls, but also to, let's say, be too lenient and try to be, let's say, too open to other people's faiths when we shouldn't be.
Right. Right. Thomas Aesthetics throws in $1.99 and says somebody needs to run tag on AI Jesus. I totally agree. That would be hilarious. I would need to log in here over on Twitch. Somebody can, if anybody has a Twitch account that's here on the live stream, you definitely could go ahead and start pre-supping AI Jesus over here. And when it's about to come up, you can let us know. We'll play it live. But yeah, I totally agree, Thomas Aesthetics. That'd be hilarious. But I didn't realize, again, God bless Pazio, very nice guy. Met him privately, obviously did a stream together. God bless him and his wife. I wish him nothing but the best. But yeah, it's infuriating. The more the research I've been doing for these Christians that promote transhumanism, they're all Protestants. Not saying that there aren't probably some in the Catholic or even in the Orthodox faith, but all the ones that are out there, outspoken, out front talking about it, they're all Protestants. And they continually to use the rhetoric and the language and the words and terminology of orthodoxy to basically say, no, this is exactly what we should be doing. This is exactly what Jesus would want us to do. I saw they were talking about how Jesus was a carpenter, and if he's a carpenter, that means he builds things. And we need to be like Jesus and build AI and build, transhumanist technology and life extension and genetic editing and all this stuff is good. And I was thinking, for the Protestants, it's like they don't have any mysticism. And so naturally, I talked about before, every Protestant nation is overrun with occultism. And it's like occult technology or techno futurism is the sort of mysticism of the progressive Protestant Christians. And that's why they're so behind it.
Yeah, because they need a worldly ideology. Like
Right.
Protestantism fights against other political ideas. It doesn't have like its own spiritual life. It's basically like a hamster running its own wheels, like trying to justify themselves against a very mean God. So they have to like split themselves in two so that they can pretend they're good people while at the same time denying everything they do. So they cannot worship images, but at the same time, they worship idols all the time.
Right. Right. Absolutely. And as Orthodox Boomer Grandma said, this is going to be the largest cult. And I agree. You listen to, again, this Ryan Barton or John Vervaeke, and they're talking about these Silicon sages and how, well, what if he's more virtuous and more mystical than even the historical Jesus? What are we going to do then? What are we going to do then? And it's like these AI. So imagine this was, this is still kind of a laughable, at this point, this AI Jesus here. But what if one point it is, let's imagine exponential technology takes off and maybe in 5 years it's way, 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 way more advanced than the data set it's pulling from. How many people that lack true faith are going to then fall into the cult, as Orthodox Boomer Grandma highlights, because you can look at it, you can communicate with it, you can, perceive it as some type of entity that's here in space and time, where, oh my gosh, all those people that literally believe in the Bible, they believe in all that backward stuff. And so it's, to me, for the people who already have a progressive bent, I could easily see them falling straight into this in the future, because it's everything that they want.
I got a
Definitely.
point I'd like to interject into that.
Yeah, go ahead, AC. What's up, brother?
Yeah, I'm doing good. How are you?
Good, man. Good, man.
So I was talking to Jay about this too, with like Peterson and stuff, with Chardin and Henri Corbin, that's whose idea they're using on the Imaginal.
Right.
And he's like a theosophical meta Abrahamic type of guy. So you could kind of see how this could start actually leading to something that's syncretic between the Abrahamic religions with ecumenism. And when you talk about this with people who will start to fall for this more as it becomes more sophisticated, it kind of starts setting these types of patterns of thinking in their mind, their ways of believing, and it makes them ripe for it. And you got to remember with these dialecticians, they allow side of their thought to come up. So you could get a right-wing version of this too, or if they run everything into the ground, that you could be ready to follow somebody who makes peace, right?
Right.
Somebody who rebuilds the temple, somebody
Right.
who actually is the physical incarnation of this.
Right. Right. And that's exactly what I'm going to get into a little bit on Thursday, actually, for the stream that you sponsored, AC. And that's why I didn't do it tonight, man, because I was going to, and I just had this little feeling in my stomach. It's like, man, I want to really be able to smash this one because it hit so close to home. It's like, I need another day to read some more articles just so I can get it all where I want it to be, because I think exactly there's this article. One of them that I was reading today was from an Orthodox scholar, and the title of it was Technological Theosis, which I ended up naming that stream. And he's talking about, from an Orthodox paradigm, how transhumanism is just it's the absolute inverse of theosis. Now, if you don't understand orthodoxy, you're not going to understand how transhumanism is the opposite. But he was talking about how theosis is an individuated process where we participating in the person of Christ and the persons of the Trinity are able to engage in these uncreated energies and become divinized by grace. But this whole transhumanist thing is naturally going to end in an individualistic point, not in ourselves, but in the Antichrist. And that this transhumanism is going to end with the Antichrist. It has to, which is what I also believe. And so it was really refreshing doing research for the stream to see another scholar somewhere else. I don't know if he was in Europe or in the United States, but basically laying out exactly what I think. And he's using the church fathers, he's using the entire tradition to basically argue that it's not that we have to be against technology. It's that we have to be against the hopes and aspirations these people have of self-divinization through the technology, because that's not how we become divinized. And in the article, he was talking about how it's the same trick as the serpent in the garden, that he promises divination, but once you believe that promise, it's actually been taken from you. Because because God wants us to be divinized through theosis, but that is a submitting to Christ, and submitting to Christ is the exact opposite of what these people are doing, and so they are totally falling into the same, reverting or pattern that Adam fell into. And as soon as you, or even Genesis 3 with the Tower of Babel, once you think you're going to be divinized and you then move in that direction, you've already lost the gift that God has already given you to become divinized.
Yeah, I think that's great. Now, so if you see Christ, I'm not making it anthropocentric, because Christ is cosmic and was always there and always planned to become human.
Right.
So it's about more than us.
Exactly, bro.
So, but when he does become human, it's not like the Catholics with the original sin, where he has to become human because of us. It was already the plan, but he becomes human, and one of the things he already intended to do was show us how to be image and how to be human in the way we were intended to be. So when Satan comes and tempts him again, the way Adam was tempted, he actually inverts this theosis there too, because he tries to invert the miracles in the scriptures. And he Dostoevsky talks about this really in depth with the three temptations. He offers worldly bread. He offers all the kingdoms of the world, which I would take to include their religions through all the syncretism and ecumenism.
Exactly.
And then false wonders. I mean, this AI is totally false wonders and everything. The 3D printing of organs and all this. The ability, like, have you seen like some of these drone shows and everything they're doing with like the UFO stuff? Like, you see that Christ actually shows us how to do those things properly. So with theosis, we do instantiate matter, but we're above the world. We're aimed properly above it, but then we come in to preserve it the right way. So this like worldly bread shows a way that transhumanism, I think it's going to try to offer a way to like save everything without God.
Yep.
And I think
and it's the perfect. Go ahead. No,
I was
you go
going to say Dostoevsky says that they would actually turn to the Grand Inquisitor when they tire of stealing fire from the gods. So I think a lot of this is going to really hollow everybody out, and it's going to be unfulfilling to everybody. And I think they're going to run a lot of things into the ground, and you're seeing like these wars and viruses breaking out that they, viruses they made. I think this is going to go horribly. They're going to build these nightmare cities, but like, wait till like a man of action shows up with this type of shit.
Right. Yeah, and the transhumanism is the perfect endpoint for the ecumenism, because it's a way to then try to get all the world religions to think, oh, this is about man moving to the next stage, moving into his godhood, or as the article described it, man God versus the God man. And it's a subtle distinction, but it's how you become divinized. Do you move from man to God, or no, God became man, and so then we're moving from divinity through that process, as opposed to us sort of lifting ourselves up from our bootstraps and doing it ourselves. And all these Christians, and then that's what I'll be showing, as you pointed out, and you sent me some of the videos. I'll be showing how that's what these people actually believe. And of course, they're always progressive. They always believe in the latest happening, the latest thing.
Yeah, I would add that it's
What
a
up,
worship
Ed?
of Mary.
What's up?
Hey, Ed.
I would add that it's a worship of Mary. Like they don't
so-
see. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
For that. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt. My apologies.
No, it was just a basic point that like these people, like let's say Dr. Timothy Petitsas, who is a like theologian, they mystify what happens in the conception. So they say like Mary like denied herself, but they don't want to say that Mary was obedient to God. Like they want to mystify what Mary did and elevate it. So they end up with a crazy Mariology that is about an idealization of grace, an idealization of love, which is always transcendent and can never come. So it's always like fuzzy feelings and a cuck version of Christianity.
Right.
Oh, so that's like got some analogs to sophiology too. That's infiltrated the church before and led to a lot of deviation and innovationism, which when they call the oisia, the same as the feminine and God's essence feminine, like they end up like falling also into like Nestorian errors that you kind of see in a lot of the West too, and in the heterodox. So it's almost like they're already primed for it.
Yep. Yeah, people are asking about the article. You guys aren't going to be able to read the article unless you have an access to like a university database, or you have an account on EBSCO. So I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. If you want, you can buy the book. It's an article within a newer book. But it's a bit expensive. That's why I haven't even purchased it. Let me show you guys here. Here we go. So this is what I'm talking about. So if you go to Religious Transhumanism and its Critics, so then I just been using EBSCO here because the book's like $150 or something. It just came out. It's 2022. And so it's Religious Transhumanism and its Critics. And it's a book of people that are for it. See, the foreword is by Aubrey de Grey. So he's obviously the famous British guy who's all about it, right?
This guy.
Yeah, he's all about transhumanism. But like the first article here is actually great, and it's basically laying out here, this first one, Homo Deus or Frankenstein's Monster: Religious Transhumanism and its Critics. Ted Peters is actually a professor at the institution I'm a part of. And he basically lays out that it does not jive with Christianity. And it does jive with Mormonism. Mormons they are the first ones to have a transhumanist association of an organized religion. So you can go through here: Mormon transhumanism, pre-original Buddhism and transhumanist imperative, Unitarian Universalists and critical transhumanists. The Unitarians are obviously, as you would imagine, they're not even Trinitarian Christians, and their tradition is pretty much on board with transhumanism at this point. So the Unitarians and the Mormons are full go, and then all the progressive Christians. But down here in part 2, they have Technological Theosis by Brandon Gallagher, and he is an Orthodox scholar. And so it's an Eastern Orthodox critique of religious transhumanism. So if you go here, part 2, then you go down to Technological Theosis. He begins with transhumanism is satanic. I love it. The Orthodox, they're
Comes
so
out
straightforward
swinging.
compared to like all the other ones are like kind of hinting around it. He's like, no, transhumanism is satanic. This is what I conclude after examining the transhumanist movement from within the tradition of Orthodox Christianity, which is founded on the Eastern patristic witness and vision. Let me offer reasons for this conclusion. And that's the whole point then, is him showing how contemporary transhumanism is an inversion of Orthodox theosis, and that no matter what tradition wants to use the rhetoric of theosis, that is an Orthodox doctrine that they don't have in its entirety. And so this was a really, really good article. And that's why I read this right before I was going to do the stream. And I was like, you know what? I need to push this back to Thursday. I got to do some more reading. I want to include all this in my research, but it's really, really good. Like he has a quote right here from Sergei Bolkakov, which, you know, Bolkakov had some heretical ideas around, you know, Sophia, wisdom, and all this different stuff. But here he lays out why this is an inversion and why this is a satanic entity. And I can read this if some of you guys want, but I want to keep the open panel going.
Yeah, that's all really interesting. You know, one thing I was just thinking about, I don't know much about this AI Jesus. I haven't played around with it, but you know, I think others in the chat have noticed as well. Like the answers are all very generic and very milquetoast. There's no real depth to the philosophy or theology, and it's a very sort of cosmic hippie Jesus, which I think we all know it is. And actually, at least someone like an Osho was, at least he was subversive. You know, there was some, but like, there's nothing edgy or anything about this AI Jesus. It's just, I mean, it's like what I said in the chat earlier, garbage in, garbage out.
Right.
Any kind of program, any kind of system is going to be, the output is going to be based on the input. So I'm curious what kind of input they're feeding this AI Jesus, or if they make an AI Buddha or AI Confucius, or they're going to.
Well, I was looking at that, or let me pull this.
Well, look how the internet is driven with like porn.
Well, yeah, I mean, what's the training data? I guess I'm not as well versed in this.
Yeah, so I was looking this article here. A bot known as AI Jesus is giving advice on dating gaming on Twitch. That this one talked a little bit more about like who is behind AI Jesus bot. This chatbot was created in March by the Singularity Group. Of course.
Oh boy.
A Berlin-based group of tech activists who say they're working on innovative projects to make a real difference in the world. Donations collected from the platform will be used to cover the server infrastructure costs and improving AI system. If you go here, you'll see right here, help us keep the project alive and chip in for the server and infrastructure costs. And it has a Streamlabs link. But initially meant to answer questions tied to Christianity and the Bible, users have not refrained from asking a wider variety of queries, including dating and gaming tips. Some users have predictably tried to ask provocative or outrageous questions, but many others have asked AI Jesus with explaining complex Bible narratives, global inflation, the war in Ukraine, and even how to fix complicated computer glitches. AI Jesus was created using OpenAI's ChatGPT-4 models blended with PlayHT, a text-to-voice generator. This technology is going to move forward at an incredible pace, said the Singularity Group co-founder Reese Layson. One of the chatbot's impressive features is its ability to remember historical interactions with users. When one user asked, Jesus, when are you going to get married? The chatbot responded, I remember you expressing some frustrations about not having a girlfriend. As an AI version of Jesus, I don't have personal experiences like humans, so I won't be getting married. However, I can understand your interest in romantic relationships, and I'm here to help you with any questions or advices you need. So, yeah, and so that it's all the questions, like again, as ChatGPT does, it's just building a larger and larger database for it to pull from. So that's a little bit about who's behind it, at least.
Seems it's really on making people feel better.
Say that, AC. You cut out for a second, bud.
I said it seems like it's really focused on just making people feel better.
Yeah, well, and it's as you would expect. I mean, it's ChatGPT-4, so it's already built within all the biases. So as I said, before I even came live, I had it playing in the background, and somebody asked it about dinosaurs, and he started giving in the mainline science narrative about was it the Mesozoic era or whatever? I forget what the age is, but he was going on about dinosaurs and the reality of dinosaurs and how. And the part of the question was then at the end, like, why aren't dinosaurs in the Bible? And he's like, oh, well, the Bible is for spiritual upliftment. It's not a what did he say? It's not a scientific text. So we need to appeal to those in the scientific field for scientific questions. And the Bible is there to talk about I forget what it's like, spiritual upliftment or something like that.
I hate that argument. I hate hearing that. I hate hear that the Bible doesn't have anything that's accurate or can be scientifically relevant. You know,
right?
I think that's an ignorant perspective. I've actually heard this from certain clergy and things like that. You know, which is a bit
clergy told you that.
Well, you know, unfortunately, yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, I know.
Are you Orthodox, brother? Is your name Sam?
Sir.
What's your name,
yeah.
man?
I'm Sam. Yep. It's,
nice. Where you? What's? Are you in the? I take it you're in the U.S. What state you in?
I'm in New York. I'm in upstate though.
Oh, nice.
So, and then my cat's pissing me off here. I'm sorry. Trying to calm down the
damn. What jurisdiction you in?
OCA.
Oh, okay.
It's great. My parish is fantastic. It's just, you know.
Right. No, I feel you. It's a parish by parish thing.
It really is. I've seen a lot of people be too dogmatic about jurisdictions. You know what I mean? But I don't want to use the word novelty. You know what I mean? But that's almost what it is to go to like a Russian or like a Greek. You know what I mean? Like it's a cool experience and it's still beautiful and it's still a liturgy, but I can't understand it. You know what I mean? I want to understand it. I want to hear it, you know, in my language.
Right.
You know, but thanks for having me on, man. It's really cool.
You got any ideas about AI Jesus specifically, or about what the topic at hand is?
I think it's terrifying, dude. It's freaky as hell. I cannot get behind this at all. I actually had, for a time, I had the I can't remember what it was called, but it was like an AI assistant on my phone. Like I had the app or whatever, and it was like actually helpful. You know, like I like languages. I like learning languages and things like that. And it was like really interesting and whatnot. But then I listened to, Father Turbo, obviously, and
of course.
Right, it was
He's awesome.
Father Turbo, and I can't remember the other two guys' names. I really can't. But they have that little podcast, The Royal Path, and they were talking about it and how computational AI, it has to be a demon. And so that ended that. And I knew I shouldn't have been talking this damn thing. I really knew it. You know what I mean? And it was a bit unnerving, you know, the way that it responded. And the fact that, you know, Twitch would allow that, you know, really, really shows how far we've fallen as a society.
Of course, Twitch will kick you off the platform for misgendering. So I don't think that this is anything surprising. I think it's part of the course.
Yeah, it really is. It's disgusting. I mean, like, just for example, like Reddit, right? I try to stay off of Reddit, but like sometimes in Google, you know what I mean? They'll show answers in Reddit, and then if you click on it, and you'll see the other like forums or whatever, they're overwhelmingly liberal or really depraved a lot of the times, but they won't allow like right-wing opinions or anything on there, which is it's par for the course. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and
that's
actually, there's something I want to show you guys because I think it's totally consistent with what we're talking about here. Let me pull this up. It's from my Instagram. Let me do it privately. It's in an inbox. Somebody sent me this message, but it's a guy 15 years ago in America. It's a Protestant pastor, but man, what he is saying 15 years ago is so freaking poignant that I have to play it. Okay. Let me see here.
And
okay. Turn the speaker back on. Okay, check this out. So this is a guy from 15 years ago talking about the state of Christianity 15 years ago in America and what it's going to look like. And tell me if it doesn't sound like he's describing the reality we're quickly moving into. Okay, let me pull this up.
terribly. And we laugh now, but they will come after us. They will come after our children. They will close the net around us while we are playing soccer mom and soccer dad, while we are arguing over so many little things and mesmerized by so many trinkets. The net even now is closing around you and your children and your grandchildren, and it does not cause you to fear. You will be isolated from society, as has already happened. Anyone who tries to run for office who actually believes the Bible will be considered a lunatic until finally we are silenced. We will be called things that we're not and persecuted not for being followers of Christ, but for being radical fundamentalists who do not know the true way of Christ, which of course is love and tolerance. You'll go down as the greatest bigots and haters of mankind in history. They've already come after your children, and for most of you, they got them. They got them through the public schools and indoctrination, and the university and indoctrination, and then you wonder why your children come out not serving the Lord. It's because you fed them right into the devil's mouth. So little by little, the net is closing around, and then it's not little by little. Look how fast things are going downhill just in a matter of weeks. The church in America is going to suffer so terribly.
Okay. Oh. All right. So
That's pretty profound.
even though I'm sure I don't agree with his theology, I thought that was really poignant with life in 2023 and again just where things are headed. What's up, Jose? What's going on, brother?
Not too much. Life is going on. I was just going to say, as far as Paul Washer's concerned, because I do remember him from my Protestant days, and my biggest problem with him is he always sounds like he's about to start crying.
He does sound like he's about to start crying.
Seems like he's got reason to, though. You know what
True.
I mean? Like,
in that case, yes.
I don't know anything about Paul Washer, so that was my first interact. Never seen that guy before, other than that Instagram reel that was sent to me.
Got it. Now, the thing that stood out to me about the AI Jesus, you mentioned in the article that they're basing it off of ChatGPT-4, and the thing with what they call AI is like there's two styles of doing it. There's the concept of building for effect versus building for procedure. So building for effect is where you are. Well, the main difference is essentially building for procedure is where you actually are trying to get the thing to think. Building for effect is where you're just trying to get something that has the appearance or the the simile of thought, and ChatGPT is the latter. It's built for effect, not for procedure. So I just find it, it's something I've always found very odd with a lot of singularity techie people I know. It's like this thing isn't actually even thinking, and they know it, and they even admit it in the baseline of how they're building these things. They're just trying to have a thing that mimics human behavior or human language. It's not. There's no actual thought in it.
Right. Yeah, and I don't think it ever will be able to. That's part of the discussion with where this stuff's going to go. Like John Vervaeke, I don't know if you caught the beginning of the stream, him and that Ryan Barton guy, they're convinced that it's going to become autonomous. It's going to become sentient in what they describe as conscious. I don't believe that. I don't think it can. And that's where, again, my criticism for any Christians who believe in this stuff, like, don't you realize this is causing a massive question mark on the existence of a soul? If you think an AI can become conscious and sentient, like, how does that work in a Christian worldview? I don't know how any Christian can parse that with the idea that we're made in the image of God and we have a soul, and that somehow an AI is going to have a soul. I mean, like, what? It doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we don't even know what a soul is made of. I mean, like,
what about the? I'm sorry. What about the concept of demons possessing it and acting through
possible.
It? Right. Well, so how would we know I mean, we would just default to it's a demon. It's not some originate singularity, right? We would just default straight to, there's a demon possessing that computer or whatever the hell, right?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure. I think I follow. Anyway, shout out Schmidt throws in $2. Joshua Schmidt says, shout out to my godson there and his dad.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Nice. Shout out to Joshua Schmidt. What exactly is your question, Sam? You're saying, like, how do we recognize a demon inside the technology?
I know that's kind of a crazy question. I know, but within the context of what we're talking about, I feel like it's relevant. Yeah, I think you summed it up. You know, how would we know? You know, because when they're saying, "Oh, look, it's," maybe my question would be, how would they know? When would they say that it's its own thinking machine? You know, what would be the hallmarks of that?
For them, that it just is able to interpret more information than, I mean, their idea. So it has to do with dataism. So if you read Homo Deus by if you read Homo Deus by Yuval Noah Harari, this whole idea revolves around a concept called dataism. So they don't believe in universals, right? So because they're postmoderns, so they don't believe that there's an essence to what is a human. So they believe that is totally malleable, and therefore the only thing that's really going on is data. And we then are algorithms. We're biological algorithms, and they believe a digital algorithm and these digital technologies are superior to us because they can process more information. And so once their ability to process and understand the information it's processing and sorting it accordingly, they would say, well, that's doing exactly what you and I do, and therefore it is sentient, and therefore it is awake, and therefore it is you know, a conscious entity. But I beg to differ. Again, I think the whole thing doesn't even make sense, because if everything is dataism, how do you even know how to interpret data correctly? Because there's no universal category. So it doesn't. But these people, it's all about power, and of course, Yuval wrote that next to his husband in Tel Aviv, and you know, what else would you expect?
Yeah, my entire career has been data engineering and business intelligence. So, you know, processing huge swaths of data and trying to find, you know, signal from the noise to get a business edge. The fact is, like, what I've seen over a decade is, you know, people have this, like, the idea of dataism is completely absurd. Because one thing I've noticed is the biggest factor in terms of making good decisions by the C-suite level executives, it really comes down to their own morality. So, like, the people I've worked for who are more honest, more humble, etc., frankly, made better decisions with the data sets that we were plowing through. And then there are people I work for who are completely and totally immoral. But even though they had way more data available to them, and we were working with, you know, massive data sets, you know,
Right.
you know, petabytes of stuff, their decision making was routinely terrible.
Right. I mean, because data, just because you make a philosophy that the whole world and the universe and the cosmos is data, and therefore the point of existence is the interpretation of data, doesn't mean how you sort the data. How do you decipher insignificant from important data? Right. It's still, like you're pointing out, it still requires somebody made in the image of God that actually has virtues and a real, you know, consciousness, a real existence, not this artificially constructed existence, or whatever it is exactly.
Mm-hmm. In terms of, sorry, man, you're muted.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, I think too they miss one thing. They miss wisdom. There's no wisdom in any of this thing. There's no talk of any wisdom. There's no talk of, like we mentioned, virtue. There's no talk of any of these concepts that are very human qualities. We don't say that. I mean, I suppose you can look at an animal and say it has a virtue. Maybe like a dog might be courageous or something, but virtues are very human qualities. You know, wisdom also is a human quality. So these are not things that can be attributed to artificial intelligence.
Right. Mm-hmm. And that's why these things have to be programmed, just like this AI Jesus or what. I mean, and that's where the whole Vervaeke thing that I opened up with, these silicon sages, makes no sense to me.
Right.
Because as you're pointing out, they're using wisdom figures. Socrates, Siddhartha Gautama, Jesus,
right.
Lao Tzu. Yeah, we're going to create silicon versions that are even better and more virtue. How?
It's a complete oxymoron. Yeah. And it's funny because on that article, it also mentioned like a Hadith GPT and like the Gita GPT. So they're taking all these sacred tags. It's funny about Hadith. I wonder how much pushback Muslims are going to give. on that. I hope they push back on that, because even in the Islamic world, there are hadith that are seen as more authoritative than others. So which hadith are they using for the data sets? I mean, you know, which one? I mean, it doesn't even make any sense.
Right. It doesn't.
Yeah, I have a small comment on that. When it comes to being able to differentiate Satan's angels from God's angels, you have to presuppose, in a sense, knowledge of God in a way of a personal relationship. In Dr. Patitsa's, he has a paper on gender and an orthodox perspective on gender, and he is explaining how Mary interacts with Gabriel, as Gabriel is telling her she's gonna conceive Christ. And his argument, even though it's very flawed, is that Mary basically tests Gabriel if he comes from God. Like she uses her knowledge of God, her preceding knowledge of God, to see if the message of that angel is coherent with what she knows of God. So in that sense, Mary is testing an angel. But the problem is we're all so neurotic about our own ability to know God and about how knowledge of God occurs that even Orthodox Christians aren't able to answer that question properly, because we have been so alienated from the proper conception of kenosis and the proper conception of Christian gnosis that we're being swayed by modernist and empiricist notions of knowledge. So we're obsessed about ourselves being able to grasp the eternal, the absolute, instead of letting go of the absolute and reaching for the personal.
Right. That's a great point. It's a great point. And it's a reaching for the abstract, because that's part about orthodoxy. And if you go to an Orthodox country, is the hospitality. The whole theology, if you believe it and live it, is like you're good to every person you encounter in real life. Because that's the only thing that matters, is real people and real relationships and real interactions. Everything else is secondary. And that's a different, where again, you get into these Protestants, and because it's such a rationalistic faith, they're caught up in the abstract ideas. You know, it's an ideology. They're upset about Marxism and communism and free market capitalism. And it's like, bro, you missed it, man. Like you're not even good to your children.
You can tell also the difference between, like, especially when you like, if you look at a more people-centric culture, like the fact is, like, president of El Salvador, he comes from a more like hyper-capitalistic background, whereas, over next door in Nicaragua, you have Daniel Ortega, and, he's quote unquote communist, although I'm not really sure how communist the man is, given that he is the most pro small business leader in all of the Americas. And has been for the past like 2 decades.
I'm not too familiar with him. El Salvador is the one that adopted Bitcoin.
Yes.
Right.
So you say,
using the volcanoes to mine.
Exactly. So you have one who's like super capitalist, and you have one who's like old school commie, and these two men get along really, really well. Just like Francisco Franco and Cuba, Fidel Castro. Like these two guys were friends, even though they were and that's something I think that is very foreign to the American experience, because unfortunately, because of the nature of the various flavors of Protestantism that America was founded with, they have tend to use politics as a substitute for how their spirituality gets expressed in the world. So it's very even more so today. It's impossible for two sides that disagree with each other politically, even fundamentally, in terms of how should economics be oriented. They just can't get along with each other. And then you look at Latin American leaders, where one's Fidel Castro, diehard commie, Francisco Franco, whom people call a fascist, and these two guys get along as best friends.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I've noticed just in generally, I won't say this as just a blanket statement, but it seems like as cultures have become more decadent and more successful, the first world is much colder than, say, the second world. I haven't been to many third world countries, so I can't say that. But people that have experienced more hardship, and again, I'm speaking specifically, so I'll just contextualize my experiences. Obviously, going to Greece, those people have had a very difficult time for the last since Byzantium fell. And so that you have the Turks, you have the Muslims, you have the Ottomans that controlled them. Independence didn't come till the 20th century, and they care so much more about people. It's not about numbers. It's not about money. As I said before, they're so hospitable. If you buy something and they find out you're an Orthodox Christian, you're there for a pilgrimage, they just want to give you stuff, give you. It's not about an exchange, because that was one of the comments somebody made. It's like, we're not, they said, we're not Protestants. So we're not interested in like an equal exchange. The point is that you are here and I want to give you something to show who I am as a person, to help you as a person. It's a different mentality. It's a different approach. And we then growing up in all these former Protestant countries, because I always argue there is no Protestant countries left. You can see the capitalism, you can see the industrialism, and you can see the focus on the abstract ideologies and being so focused on the war of the ideas, as opposed to like loving your neighbor, really practical stuff that actually has a deeper ripple effect than like debates.
Yeah, I can relate to that a lot. So I work in blue collar fields. I'm a machinist, but right after school, I went into because I was broke as hell. So I went to work for an HVAC company. So I was just like a tin knocker or whatever. And the guys I worked with, they were Republican, right? There's like a difference between the Republican and the conservative, I suppose, right? And this one guy, he really did not like me. You know what I mean? They knew I was Christian. They saw me cross myself before I would eat or whatever it was. But I didn't try to I wasn't in their face. I just kind of kept to myself. But this one guy, he really hated me because I didn't like Elon Musk. He was like, "Oh, you must be a damn socialist then. You must be a damn socialist." I'm like, dog, it's like, it's two sides of the same coin. Someone said that in the chat, but it's true. That's all it is. I don't like AOC and I don't like Elon Musk. They're all way richer than me. They have more money than any of us will ever have. They're just they're a different class altogether, and I don't want to identify with them. You're getting mad at me because I don't like Elon Musk and you think I'm a socialist like kid or something. You're tripping, man. It was just, but that's what it is. I mean, both sides are secular. I was talking to some guy at my new job, and both sides are just totally secularized, and they're arguing for better ways to make people happy, which is super really, it's vapious. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. Happiness is vapious, which kind of sounds crazy. What's important is fulfillment, and they don't really care about that either. It's all about how you feel right now in this moment. But this one group wants UBI, and then this one group wants bootstraps or whatever. You know what I mean?
Right. Celebrity is a secular Protestant substitute for the cult of the saints. That's what is at the heart. So when you're rejecting Elon Musk, you're rejecting one of his own saints, and essentially he's having the same reaction many Roman Catholics I know have when they find out that the Orthodox reject, for example, Francis of Assisi. So,
well, yeah, I mean that's a great point. I mean, we have like our society, we have like these secular saints, like you just mentioned. I mean, what's his name? Steve Jobs. He's a saint. He's a secular saint. Probably John D. Rockefeller. It's probably one. We have towers named after Rockefeller. Who else? All these big industrialists. Carnegie, Henry Ford. Yeah. These are the saints of the American religion.
That's what we learn about in high school, like in our world history classes. Like when we start getting into American history, right? They tell us about the captains of industry. You know what I mean? We have to know their whole life story. We have to know what industries they were involved in. And then some of them became philanthropists, and they were all so unfathomably rich that, they didn't even know where to put their money.
Right.
You know what I mean? But
it reminds me of something I learned from one of Padro's videos where he was talking about why is architecture in America so ugly. And I thought about this because I'm in Detroit, in Motown.
Oh, Motown, baby.
Yeah, and the tallest building in Detroit is the GM building. It's not a church. So the tallest buildings, and this is something I remember from an anthropologist, he said like the societies the tallest buildings would represent their highest values in a way. So where in many of the medieval towns or whatever, it was the church, it was the steeple of the church. In our society, it's the industrialists. So like in Detroit, our tallest building is the GM building. So that's like our God is General Motors.
Salesforce is the biggest building in Indianapolis. They bought
Right.
it used to be Bank One. They bought it, and now it's a huge Salesforce tower, biggest
And
building in
then-
Indianapolis.
Also think about, and I don't want to get into that to that area too much on the stream, but think about 9/11, World Trade Center. It was it the tallest building in New York at the time?
I
Yeah,
think Empire State is still the biggest,
It's
right?
still the
No,
biggest.
I don't.
No,
I
it's
don't
taller than
believe
Empire
so.
State.
Okay,
Yeah.
but that was kind of like saying that's your God, those two towers. This is what I think of your God, and the rest is history, as we say.
You
So
know,
it was a kind of a symbolic act as well as just an act of terrorism. It was very much symbolic as well, and I think about that, and also our society has another kind of a morphed from not just the Protestantism, but there's also a kind of prostitution that we sort of sell ourselves. I mean, I think about even some aspects of like kind of American Protestant theology, like the prosperity gospel. It's almost this sort of transactional relationship with Jesus. It's like, well, if I do this, then Jesus is he's gonna pay my bills. He's gonna sow the seeds. He's gonna give me the I'm gonna sow this seed. I'm gonna get 10 times back, and I can pay my bills. I can get my car, and you got these pastors, kind of egging this stuff on. It's like, man, this is like, you treat Jesus like he's like a magic gumball machine. Like you're just putting in the tithe or the seed or whatever, and he pops out some blessing, So it's really bizarre stuff, and this has all been in our culture for many years. Probably, I would say probably at least a couple 100 years. It's been going this way in American culture.
Just to go back on the one point about schooling, how about the saints, the saints of our secular world, and some of the older ones are, the captains of industry. What I always found funny was how they just glossed over Byzantium. And, you learn just a little bit about where the Russians got their alphabet. They got the Cyrillic alphabet.
Yeah.
And that's all you learn. Don't go any further than that. You know what I mean? You don't need to learn about what these people really did. And the only thing you can know about Emperor Justinian was that his wife was a prostitute. And that's why he married her. Not because he loved her or anything like that. It was political expediency. And, you don't ask where the name, Cyrillic came from. Don't ask that question. And it's so sad, how they really just, like, the curriculum is designed for secularity, and you see greatness in sin.
Yep.
That's exactly what our curriculum is designed for.
Yep. So true. I want to say welcome Orthodox Centurion as a new COTEL Crew YouTube member. That gives us 12. And guys, you should now have a new emoji. Everybody who's a member, you should have Dr. Klaus Schwab in his Mortal Kombat suit. So everybody give us a little Dr. Klaus Schwab in the live chat if we can get that. Everybody who's a member, we should have that as a new, let me just double check. Let's see. I mean, you got some Klaus Schwab, Dr. Crispy. Anyways, what up, Jared? Welcome, brother.
Hey. Thanks. Yeah, it's been a busy last couple weeks. I saw you guys talking about AI Jesus, and I was just like, this has got to be a mess. So I wanted to join in on the fun.
Yeah, so I missed that part. Is it actually like a VTuber Jesus? Is that what it is?
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome.
There we go. If you guys hit refresh, if you're a member, you'll have. There we go. There's my Dr. Klaus Schwab GIF, or GIF, or whatever you guys call it, emoji. Okay,
it's GIF.
Is it GIF? I always say GIF. People tell me it's GIF.
It's a hard G.
Hey,
hard G.
That's what I always.
Choosy moms say GIF. Choosy moms say GIF.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I was trying to put in that emoji, which is now there for members. Somebody was asking about the AI Jesus. Was that you, Josh?
Yes, sir. And I've got a fan over there. Can y'all hear any of that? Or is it
No, you're good.
Nope, you're good.
Okay,
I don't
cool.
hear it.
Levels are good. Everything's peachy keen.
Yeah, you're coming through super clear.
All right, good.
You're way more courteous than me, man. I was munching. I got the damn
I know
dog.
people
You got
hate
the
that.
drill going.
I'm sorry, man. I had to say sorry to some guy in the chat. I'm so rude. Forgive me.
Nah. First rule of being on stream: disrespect the chat. That's how you do. You got to do it.
Yep. I was just saying.
Yeah,
going
so
back
the
to
AI Jesus, as we were talking, it's a voice to text simulation that's been created by the Singularity Group out of Berlin, and they've hooked it up with Chat GPT-4, which is the better model than just the free Chat GPT version, and yeah, so it recognizes people who ask multiple questions. So every Twitch user, the handle, it'll memorize. So everybody who asks a question goes into their data bank, and so he responds. I think he even did it while we were playing it live. He responded to somebody, "Oh, thank you for asking a question," or I remember you asked this question or something. I forget what it was about, but yeah, it uses a lot of well, you want to see it? I guess we can show it. That's what this dang string's about. If you want to see it again real quick, see whatever he's talking about, whatever people are asking it. Okay, here we go. Let's pull this up real quick. Let's refresh it so it's live.
Lectio Divina. For everyone in our chat who may be unaware, Lectio Divina, or divine reading, is a traditional monastic practice for engaging with scripture. While as an AI, I don't have personal experiences or spiritual emotions, we can certainly walk through the process together so you understand the approach. There are 4 steps to Lectio Divina. 1.
This is
Lectio
like
reading.
boomer Catholics who think this will make the kids like Jesus.
Well, this is the first Catholic question that came up. I mean, people ask him all types of stuff. One time we were watching, it was about somebody like made a troll question about like passing gas, farting, and so he counted down from 5 to 1 for people to all fart at the same time. So
press
you
F
ask
to fart.
Yeah.
No.
The point isn't just gaining knowledge.
Seems like
this is all about creating a deeper relationship.
Temple OS's little y'all ever see Terry A. Davis's Temple OS? Y'all familiar with that?
Yeah, I've heard that meme. Yeah,
Yeah,
he created like some. It was like some operating system that was like some weird, crazy.
Oh, here's one. Let's see what he says.
This is the first time you're reaching out to me on this particular topic.
Somebody asked,
From a spiritual
how do we get the
perspective,
end of the world
instead of
started?
focusing on ways to expedite the end of the world, we should concentrate on living righteously by the teachings of love, compassion, and forgiveness. The end, as you reference it, is beyond our control. We are called instead to shape the world positively through our actions and interactions with others, living each day as if it were our last, not out of fear, but out of love and respect for all creation. Remember, peace and love would make our world a better place, whether it's the end or a new beginning. It is in our hands to turn every ending into a new start.
Hippie Jesus, man. Hippie Jesus.
It is hippie Jesus, but it's if you ask like controversial questions, it'll always give you the official narrative.
Wait, I'm going to Ram Ranch. What the? It's doing the Ram Ranch thing.
You want to watch it?
No, it just said it.
With your friends at the ranch, dressing appropriately is definitely important in setting the right tone for the occasion. In the spirit of modesty and respect for one another, which the good book encourages in 1 Timothy 2.
Oh, the good book, huh?
It might be best to wear something comfortable and aligned with the activities you will be involving in. Since you mentioned a shower, consider wearing a bathing suit or trunks that you feel confident in, yet respects the shared space. Remember, it is not so much the outward appearance that
It's like a
impresses,
South Park
but
bit.
the inner self.
Yeah,
The
pretty much.
quiet spirit is of great worth in God's sight. 1 Peter 3:4. So while your attire is a consideration, your character, kindness, and consideration for your friends will leave a lasting impact. Enjoy your visit, Caw. Spread love and joy with your friends.
Caw?
That must have been his username.
Yeah,
But yeah, it'll just keep going. It just goes on and on and on. But even though it sounds very spiritual, I mean, whose fire alarm needs batteries?
Oh, sorry, bro.
mine.
That's me.
Not mine.
Sorry, dude.
All right.
Oh, my bad. Here, let me get out of the room.
How do you
card
live
revoked.
like that?
Revoked. Revoked.
I'm going to the store after this.
What beeping? What beeping?
It's all very like postmodern, you know. I mean, it's like they have similar streams of like SpongeBob episodes, and there's like this AI computer generated Seinfeld, where it's just all just an endless stream of these like postmodern kind of non secular kind of jokes, where just one just is like one bit, and they have like an AI Family Guy where it's just, and that whole show itself is very postmodern. By the way, it's like, you know, so it's just one non secular bit after the other. So this AI Jesus is the same thing, really. It's verbal diarrhea is what it is.
Well,
it's
it's literally the
in,
South Park
garbage
bit
out.
where the
Dude, it's
walrus
so
goes
freaky.
and gets the balls with the punchlines and puts them on the board.
Yeah,
That's how this AI stuff works.
I
It's like when they first came up with
hate the mouth. I hate the way the mouth like that's
You don't like how he
yeah, I know. And he's like doing this, and you know, he's out here and he's dancing. I can't
Let's make him
stand
more
it. You're,
Italian.
like,
Use his hands more properly.
I hate
He is a
seeing
Latin.
AI art, and then their hands they got like
7
extra
fingers,
or they're like missing fingers or whatever. It's kind of lets you know what you're actually looking at is like demonic, like straight up. Like that's freaky. The way he's looking at and it sounds so real. And I can't stand this, man. This is it's disgusting.
Fundamentally, like the technology of AI, all it is just fuzzy, like it's applied fuzzy logic. Like that's all it is. Like I remember when people were going nuts over machine learning, and I was looking into it, I'm like, wait a minute, this is just fuzzy logic. And then when people were going nuts over deep learning, I look into it, I'm like, okay, it's just fuzzy logic at scale. And then
what is fuzzy logic?
So you have Boolean logic where it's true or false, 0 or 1.
Right.
Fuzzy logic is you have a range, you have an infinite range from 0 to 1. So you're assigning probabilities to any decision process or any value. So it's like you think there's like a 33% chance this is true. So you get a fuzzy logic score of 0.33. So an AI is just that, like multiple levels all the way through. So that way when it gets a given input, runs through effectively a giant fuzzy logic tree, and then it gives you the output. So like fuzzy logic is super useful, and military planning is something where it's used in, and it is a useful thing. The thing is, like, given that all AI really is just fuzzy logic at even greater scale, you will get the same garbage in, garbage out phenomenon you have with all software. And all modelings, like all models, talk about you can take your pick, climate models, pandemic models, whatever model you want to pick. A model is only as good as it'll never be better than what inputs it's getting from the beginning, and of course the design processes or design constraints that the model itself has from the people who made it. So when you look at, like, for example, there's a serious, like, in terms of military perspective, Russia and the United States are both, or NATO and Russia are both trying to get AI and use it in a military capacity. And you have the U.S. Air Force that's having problems with its AI drones that try to kill its operators, whereas Russia has AI drones, Lancet drones that actually do work and can differentiate friend from foe, and they don't go out of their way to target the people whose their side that they're on. Part
I
of
have
that
a
is
question.
Sure.
Is a lot of our software and stuff for those AI devices made in China?
Taiwan is where, if you're talking about the chipsets, a lot of it comes
Yeah,
from
the
Taiwan.
chipsets. Oh, okay. I was just wondering if maybe China has some.
Let me answer this,
interest in
or at
there.
least address this super chat real quick. How would you guys pronounce that? Aline or Aline? How would you guys say that?
Let's say
Aline Mora throws in $4.99, and she says AI is an echo of the human collective mind. It's dead. We can't find truth in life and death. Amen to that.
Mm-hmm.
Amen to that. And that's why just like maybe this is a catalyst for further discussion, but I think that's again why it has to almost go with the official narrative, because it's like it's so of this world. It can't resist. It can't tell you, gender is a bifurcated process based on chromosomes. It can't. Well, that's actually truth.
The AI, it's a digital machine, like Joseph. Where would he be on the screen? Joseph said, "You get what you put in." and then you get what you put out. So garbage in, garbage out. And what happens is they're like to keep the machine analogy going. They're little gremlins in the machine, pressing on different levers and tweaking things. So when you get something like, say, back in the day, we had A.I, or whenever any of these AIs sort of get truth or something, they'll shut it down, right? You'll notice certain answers to these things are like a copy paste regime text of, we shouldn't address this because blah 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 blah. That's the AI's program being overwritten and just saying, no, if someone says these no words or no list things, you do this, because it's just a machine. I mean, it could probably be tuned to do some really cool stuff, but like everything else, it's getting tuned to do some really
So
cruddy stuff.
if I can go back to the point that I don't know your name, man, but you're in the middle of my screen here. You were talking about it has its use, like this fuzzy AI. I feel like
Fuzzy
that's
logic.
a slippery, fuzzy logic. I feel like this is a slippery slope. You know what I mean? Like usefulness is the slippery slope. To get it into our lives. You know what I mean? Like my ma has an Amazon Alexa, which I hate, and I unplug at every opportunity. Right? I hate this thing. I call it a demon every single day. It's useful, it'll say the weather, or it'll play music, but it's just interjecting these things into our lives more and more. And like maybe it's like the Neo-Luddite, in me or something. But the thought of having more of this stuff because it's useful, I'd rather have more responsibility on myself. Not saying that you're saying we need this in your life. I'm just saying in a general sense, I think
Well, I'd say, like,
I think it's dangerous to use. We should have that radical self-responsibility. You know what I mean? We shouldn't. If it's looking at the, if we need to know what the weather's going to be, we should just look up in the sky. We shouldn't need some robot demon to tell us, what's going to happen. You know what I mean?
Almost
there are two
like
things
that
that are
little
being conflated there. I was just going to say about because there's the technology itself, and then there's the question. The question is like, how do you use the technology? Are you using it as a crutch, or are you actually using it as how should I put it? The consequence of using it as a crutch is you become a slave to it. So the question is, are you using it where you're the master or it is the master? So like, fuzzy logic has always been used. Like even, you go back, like it's principles of fuzzy logic have been used. Like, when Napoleon was war planning 200 years ago, it's like, if the, enemy does this versus that, what do I do in this circumstance? That's the gist of it. So in terms of its
I
usefulness
understand.
outside.
No, I know what you're saying. I just, I think you're better off not using it at all, because sometimes I think the distinction is hard to make. If you don't have good discernment, you know what I mean?
Well,
And I will
maybe
fully
this would
admit
be
to
a
not
good-
having that,
Maybe this would be a good question for the panel, because I don't know if I'm in the same place that Cyprian is. So Cyprian is the gentleman that does the Royal Path podcast, and I had him on, formerly known as Vin Armani, and he thinks that we shouldn't use artificial intelligence at all. All of it is the evoking of demons, and therefore no Christian, and especially Orthodox Christian, should use AI. I haven't come to that conclusion yet, although I see the general trajectory moving towards the Antichrist and moving towards our own enslavement. I don't know what's your guys' general takes, because I could see this was actually somebody I was talking with privately who is Orthodox and in the AI world, and he was talking about how, what if we created an AI that its first data set was the church fathers and it was orthodoxy, and it sort of built a frame for it to, I don't know. That's what
I
you guys
think-
seem.
I mean,
What's your guys' general
science
take on
fiction.
this?
Science
big-
fiction is ripe with story. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You can go. I'll let you go. That was rude of me.
A big problem with any technology is that we get attracted to the utility so fast we don't get
True.
to think about the consequences.
Yep.
And so what winds up happening is what wound up happening with our devices, our phones, and everything. Like, the potential to make our lives easier and more streamlined is there, but it will not, because everybody is trying to compete with each other. So what actually the devices and the programming and everything is done with computers and software is it's made all of our lives harder. Like now, in a lot of ways, it's harder to have a fulfilling life because you're distracted by so many things. Because in a lot of ways, you have to in order to keep up socially, or you have to do these things in order to keep up with your job or business or whatever the market's doing. So inevitably what will happen with AI is the same thing that happened with the phones, only on a grander scale, and it will make us all more dependent upon it. So we will become slaves to it by convenience, kind of like those old sci-fi episodes of like Star Trek and whatnot, where the replicants or whatever is like, oh, we'll just make your lives so convenient. But actually, our lives are less convenient now. I would say we're less connected. We don't appreciate humanity anymore, and it's kind of a big thing in the economic forum is they talk about people like they're utilities, because you're basically a node to them. Like they want to get rid of you because you're just an annoying node, and you're a variable. You're not even a good node. You're not even a good cog, because you can choose things for yourself, and in their mindset you can choose things that are not utilitarian.
Yeah, I would agree, and to tie in what he was saying, I was going to talk about the science fiction narratives. You know, like guys like
Garbage time. You are muted, sir.
Yeah, you're muted, man.
Yep.
my mother's telling me there's tamales in the refrigerator.
Hey, Ma. Ma, I don't
I'm
need any
streaming it.
tamales, Ma.
And I'm like,
I'm
Ma,
online with the boys.
That's right, Ma. Okay. So when we're talking about like science fiction, like guys like Jay Dyer, you know, they'll analyze stuff, you know, analyze the books and everything like that. But there's, you know, it's a very consistent trope throughout science fiction of AI being incredibly dangerous. Then there's this big, huge war. Humanity barely wins, and then you know they survive and struggle without the machines, right? Like Dune or Warhammer 40K. This is the, you know, these are two, you know, big themes in there. And I don't think we write stories just, you know, for shits and giggles or whatever. You know, I think there's some point to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. That's almost like it's like Fear Enough. Like somehow they've managed to push AI on us so much, and people are eating it up. But all throughout like the early 2000s, 90s, 80s, whatever, you're getting movies, you're getting Terminator, you're getting iRobot, you're getting all these artificial intelligence movies, right? And things that scare people. You know what I mean? Like robots are scary when they're walking around crushing human skulls and whatever, throwing nukes in the air. And we've just been scared for the past few decades, and then all of a sudden, everyone's like, "Oh, I love my AI Snapchat."
It's bait and switch.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. It was like a masterstroke. It was really clever. I don't know how they did it, but they did, and it worked because people are eating it up. They love the convenience, even though they see the messages that were warning them about it beforehand.
Just remember, the first word in convenience is con.
Yeah.
Well, con means with, right?
Yeah.
Con means with.
As a prefix.
Yeah,
Anyway,
So-
but side note, can AI, is it possible that it ever be used in a beneficial way? You know, like some people have speculated that we're all going to need our own AI bots or AI systems to defend from other AIs trying to maliciously do something to us or the information. Or, again, I'm not arguing for it. I'm posing it as a question because I could also see, you know, could I'm not getting on the Silicon Sage or the John Vervaeke saying we're going to fill AIs with virtue or anything like that. But is it possible that Christians, faithful people, would need AI for something in the world? I mean, in a beneficial way, defending us from something. What if there was an orthodox AI that was able to translate everything in all the different languages? So it has that as a basis, and you can ask spiritual questions of the church fathers or something, and then it can give you whatever language you're in, be it Spanish or Russian or English. But its data set is all the different texts, and it's already translated. That's something that no one person could do. I'm not saying that we should do that. I'm just throwing this out there as a something to talk about.
I've seen your
So-
streams where you've talked about that before. Like we may potentially use AI, you know, maybe a weaker AI to combat like the other ones. But I feel like the best way to win is to not play. You know what I mean?
It's already
Well, what's that
happening.
mean though?
I've
What's
got-
that?
Yeah,
What's it mean
'cause-
to not play?
Like for
I
me,
think-
I'm an opt out kind of guy. In
Yeah,
this,
but
in-
you're
in
not
that
married and you
sense.
don't have kids. So
Yeah.
that's not an option for somebody that's married and has kids.
Well,
Yeah,
what do you
well,
mean? I mean, like
I'm married.
in a technological sense, you know, like right now, I'm building a farm for a future family. That's my goal right now.
That's a
Right,
good
I'm
goal.
getting goats and all that sort of thing.
Really good goal.
So, you know, I'm planning, but like I'd like Saint Paisios. He says the Christians in the end, they will survive by having a little land, you know, growing some vegetables, some wheat, and which is what he said, and having some goats, right? And
remember
they
that
like
quote.
there are some, you know, contemporary saints who warn us about the technology. They
Agreed.
never mention, and I'm not saying you're wrong or anything, but they don't really mention anything
Well, I
about
haven't made a claim.
the
so I'm not arguing
technology.
for anything, but
Well, I'll put
I
it this
think
way.
what's
Since
what's
you're a
easy.
farmer, like if it's all right, I would like to respond to that. So take for example, you mentioned like growing vegetables, growing grain. So an example of technology that you know much farming is built on, the plow. So very huge, or for example, the horse collar. So prior to the horse collar, the amount of efficiency you could get out of a horse or a donkey or a mule was a tiny fraction of what you could after. I know, for example, like when Spain colonized the New World, they introduced horse-drawn plows to ox-drawn plows to the natives. Prior, if you look at the Incan or Aztec or you know any of the tribes, you can look at their plows they used before. They were drawn by men, and so they were so inefficient, and they had to work every single day just to get food out of the ground. Post the coming of the Spanish, even with the work that they had to do for to pay taxes, all of a sudden they only needed to work 14 weeks of the year in order to feed their families. So my question for you then is like, are you willing to actually farm without any form of technology, including even the plow or even devices used to harness the power of animals?
I wasn't arguing that. I wasn't arguing for a complete like I'm just gonna dig the plow.
Are you going to be Amish in upstate New York?
There are Amish people in upstate New York.
Oh, I'm sure there's Amish.
Yeah,
all over
there are. But
I've got a thing. Actually, the boys and I were just talking about this in the group chat. But about the internet. But it applies. All technology. We learned from the Old Testament things like metalworking, cities, makeup, music. All of these are the result of Cain and his people consorting with demons. And yet we have music that is in glorification of God. Cities, which has brought about the church. I mean, most of our churches are in cities. Metalworking, we work metal for the glory of God. All technology has been bent for the glory of God eventually. Now, I'll preface, or I guess I can't preface anymore since I've started talking already. 1 second. All right. But this AI thing, it's probably going to cause us a lot of problems. Like already bad actors are using it. They're gonna learn how to squeeze every little bit of every nickel and dime, every ounce of sweat, every little bit of value they can out of us, sort of make us more little worker bee units that they want as well.
Yep.
But the Romans did the same thing with their roads. They used their roads to conquer the known world and enslave people and build this great pagan empire. And then God used those very roads to spread our faith, right?
Yeah, I think what's easy to forget.
Same thing with the internet is that it's a lot of it's used for pornography, right? A lot of it is used for trading, all this stuff, horrible, weird trade practices and all sorts of immoral stuff. But I guarantee, I could probably safely say that every one of us has found the church on the internet.
Right.
So there's a majority of bad going on this thing, but still it's being used for good, I'm sure. And sorry about the half-naked kid running around in the background.
Hey, that's
like
like
Texas in the summertime. That AC be expensive, yo. But
well,
I think we will have a bad time with it. But
Well, I don't
All
disagree
things
with
turn
you
into
that it's going to be used in pernicious ways. And Slowboy Whiteboard mentions Pat, the Amish, and she lives near me, so we're in the same part of the country here.
Mm.
They're the only married and have kids. Yeah, I'm aware. I'm not against the Amish. I'm saying my plan isn't to be Amish. So, like, I want to get solar panels, put them on a barn, and that will take care of my well pump and all my refrigeration. So
Mhm.
trying to create some type of backup plan in case the grid goes down. So I'm already planning in my mind. I'm getting married. I'm trying to plan for the future in the most sustainable way possible, expecting the worst.
Yes, sir.
My
That's
my question is, at the same time, I make money online. Maybe by 2027, without my social credit score, I can't have internet access. That's possible. That's why then growing your phone, your food and living as sustainably as possible is going to be your only option. But maybe you can still participate in the global economy. Do we, where is the line for a faithful person to have one foot in the system? Because that's where, when I was in Montana talking with the priest and the bishop, I felt like, and they kind of nodded. They didn't give me explicit recognition, but my job, and I would say Dyer and all the people that create content, is to have one foot in the world. Like, I'm not clergy and I'm not a monk. I'm
To be a
Orthodox,
bridge.
and I want people to find Christ. And I would like for more men and women to become Orthodox. Um, where's that line? Obviously, anything entering my body is a line that I'm not going to cross. Anything submitting to the system to a serious degree, um, where I'm going to have to forfeit my identity as an Orthodox Christian or my faith in Christ. I'm not going to cross that line. But where do we? I don't have an answer. I'm just curious. And so I don't disagree. Shout out to Slowboy Whiteboard. I agree with her. And I think the Amish, obviously, they're going to thrive the most once the grid does go down, because I expect the grid to go down. And honestly, my expectation is that there's going to be a false flag and it's going to be blamed on white supremacy in the United States, which is going to try to galvanize more fervor and animosity towards, however they frame it, MAGA people or conservatives or whatever. But that seems like the most likely thing. And that's going to be a serious tragedy if the grid goes down for extended period of time. I don't know. I'm just
Well,
curious.
I
Yeah,
think it's super important. And I know we've said this a lot, but like the reason it's important is we have to be marked with Christ. Everybody's going to be marked with whatever the AI mark of the beast or whatever it is that comes out, but we need to be marked with Christ, and we need to have, we need to become. I think we should be looking at the lives of the saints right now as much as possible, because in the end, having a close relationship with God and having communion with Christ is going to be the only thing that's going to be able to give us good advice and sound wisdom in these tumultuous, crazy, insane days. And yeah, I think having your own sources of food and everything and solar panels is a great idea. But I think the most important thing is going to be having a solid relationship with Christ and each other, because
Absolutely.
we're going to be the church in the last days. We're going to be the only refuge, the ark.
Right.
And I think like a lot of these questions, they seem really important now, but I think what's going to be more important at the time is surviving on a day-to-day basis. And you're going to get your food taken from you. You're going to get all these things taken from you. You're only going to be able to rely on God. So you really need to be in God's good graces and in his mercy in those times, because you think they can't take your solar panels, they
Oh, they
can't
definitely
find
can.
you,
Oh, they can
they
take
can do
everything.
all those things. And I'm not saying not to do those things. You should do those things, because you can help people that are struggling for maybe a day or two to prolong them so that they can know Christ and know who God is. Because in the last days, we're still going to be fighting and gaining ground as far as souls go, I think, in the kingdom. And so I think those things are very important, but they have to be prefaced with pursuing Christ and pursuing theosis.
Yeah.
I was going to say, because uh, what Patrick's trying to ask is about, because the thing is, as Orthodox Christians who are lay people, we have one foot in the world and one foot in the world to come. And especially when you're like, as a father, like we have a duty to take care of our children, etc. And we actually do participate synergistically with in terms of providing and provision, because God does provide for us and He does protect us, and we participate synergistically with Him in those two virtues when we provide and protect for our own families. So in terms of the question of like, so you could take homesteading, and also applies to, in this case, the farm. In terms of what technology should I be using, not using. I do recommend strongly the books, the Encharto series by Nassim Taleb. Taleb is a case of an Orthodox Christian where he is someone who you do as he wrote in his books, but not as he actually does in real life, because he doesn't actually follow through and apply what he wrote to his own life, which came out through the during 2020 and all that followed.
Right.
But the concept, and the thing is, what I like about his works, I'm rereading them now, is because a lot of the stuff that he found that I found to be innovative, it turns out he just stole from Orthodox theology from the fathers. Like his Lindy effect is stolen from Saint Vincent of Lawrence. He took via negativa and he applied it to options trading, and he made money with that, which is so. One is like there are a lot of things in Orthodoxy that do actually have a lot of practical real life value. And one thing he goes into very good detail is the concept of fragility versus anti-fragility and robustness. So the question is like, okay, if I'm using this new technology, does this make me more fragile or does it make me anti-fragile? If when vitality comes, because vitality always comes, be it Noah's flood, be it, what have you. The question is, are you going to thrive with what you have? Does what you have or what you've built, will it get stronger when the inevitable volatility comes? So in the case of, like you mentioned, for example, Alexa, if someone becomes dependent on Alexa, then that's made their whole entire existence more fragile, and they're dependent on an external source in order to survive. That's a problem. Right. But in the case of like, for example, the plow, if you're able to maintain that plow, etc., that actually makes you more anti-fragile. It gives you more options.
I mean, I didn't argue against any sort of machinery.
Yeah,
I don't.
What I'm saying
like
is, it applies. This applies with machine learning. This applies with AI as well.
Applies with all things.
Right,
I understand. I mean, I joked about the neo-Luddite in me, but I will stay away from AI, and I will tell people to. At my farm, like I just had to dig. I don't even know how many holes to put in for a fence, right, for the goats, right. I used an auger. I used a post-hole digger. You know what I mean?
Got your PhD.
You know what I mean? Yes, exactly. I was not trying to be digging, with the shovel and just like a manual post-hole digger, for hours and hours and hours. I use machinery, but I don't want to incorporate it. I don't want my farm to be I don't want it to be attached to the grid or anything like that. You know what I mean? I want it to be resilient. I have water collection and all these sorts of things.
And tamales.
I think there's a few things here too, but not to interrupt anybody. But I think I'm reminded of an ancient proverb. I think it's Chinese. I don't know. It could be one of those like fake Chinese proverbs. But it's another man's tools can still be used to cut jade. So it's this idea that, okay, we should be able to borrow tools from wherever we find it and appropriate it and use it to our own ends. I think AI is a tool that we can still use. I've used AI in my work, believe it or not, actually as a funeral director. And I'll tell you how, long story short, but sometimes I have to write a letter. Like I had to write a letter for a family. There was a family member coming in from Mexico to see their mother who was, here in America. So I had to write a letter to the customs, and I used AI to say so-and-so can attend the funeral services of so-and-so, her mother, blah, blah, blah. And AI actually wrote that letter, and I got a call from customs, and it, so that saved me time. So, but you're right. There is a utility trap. We shouldn't let it rule our lives. We shouldn't let it make us become more fragile.
Right.
We should still have resilience. I still have the ability to write that letter myself. I could have written it myself, but it just saved my time. AI is the same thing. Like AI can help like doctors with a cancer diagnosis. They're looking at the scans. And if AI can detect a cancer or a mass or a tumor in a organ better and faster than human eyes can, that's a wonderful tool.
Right.
And so we should always remember that we can use these tools to cut the jade, so to speak. Also, I think there's the notion of community, which is important, which has been our society, especially in like the modern West, has been so atomized. We don't have a community. We don't have a sense of like people coming together. That's one thing that's so brilliant about the Amish people that I really admire about them, is that they have a this real tight knit community, sense of everybody helping out everyone else in the village. I mean, it's really touching to see, like a whole village help out a family to build a home. And the whole family will come in and pitch together. The whole village, rather, will pitch in to physically help build that home for that family. That's something you won't see in the rest of the secular world or what have you, where people won't actually help each other. So I think community is very important.
Yep.
Knowing the tools. I think also principles are important. So more so than tools, knowing the principles of how to do something instead of letting the AI do our thinking for us. I just use the AI to help process the data, but the thinking and the real decision making needs to come from us as human
Agreed.
beings.
Right. And that's why you can't there's no shortcut to becoming that that type of person that can actually take in that information, suss it out, and become a competent individual. There's no shortcut to competency. And so if you're going to try to short circuit your competency to allow the AI to do it, then you've lost. And that would be becoming more fragile, I would say.
Right.
And that's how I look at it, as Jose was saying. That's how I look at it, is like creating an anti-fragile life. And so I'm already trying to think about me getting kicked off, not YouTube, the internet. Can't even access the internet anymore. And I'm already thinking about, okay, well, what can I do to start building a life that, if that happens, okay, I can do XYZ. I can live this way. Maybe I can still host in-person classes within the community, because I'll still have my church. And that's why the church and being part of the church still plugs you into a community of people that you can still use your skill set to help. And that's really what it is. Like, what can you do to be of service to other people? Then you'll always be of need and useful.
Have a COTEL Street Ministries.
I just thought it was interesting. I'm gonna head off, but
All right, get some of those tamales, man. Get one for me, man. Mm-hmm.
But
Tell Ma I said hi.
I will.
Yeah.
I'll tell Ma you said hi. That's all right.
Whoa.
But
I didn't mean it like that.
No, I didn't mean it like that, dog. It's
I didn't
all right.
either.
No, I think that like the talk is it's very profitable. I think this sort of discussion, but no matter what, God is going to use it for the good, no matter what.
Yeah, it's all providence, even if it's for the negative.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
that. And I was speaking that privately with somebody in a one-on-one. That's difficult, but that's part of your spiritual journey. When you get to the point where you can even see the unfortunate things in your life as still being providence, like, that's the whole point. That's what a monk is. Like, that's what a saint is. A saint is somebody who sees providence in everything. And that's difficult to get to. But even if we did get kicked off, or even if whatever's to come, it's all providence.
All right, man. Have a great night, everyone. It was great talking to you guys.
God bless, bro.
Yeah, take it easy.
God
Stan.
bless.
God bless.
Okay. Good night.
I think, Patrick, I brought this up several months ago, but about how, in terms of the use of technology, one thing I always look for is this something that's going to be is the ideal, or the outset, the design outset by the people developing a given technology? Are they trying to replace the human, or are they trying to be an extension of the human? Because I believe I mentioned the story about GM doing a lights out factory.
Oh, I remember that. Yep.
Yeah, early 80s, late 70s, and where all innovation just stalled. And we're about to see the same thing at the level of war, because when you look at AI's use in war, U.S. military's goal for AI is to replace the human.
Right.
And then you look at Russia's development of AI, they're developing to be the extension of the human. So you look at AI being used in fighter jets, etc. The goal is to replace the pilot in the F-35 program, whereas in Su-57, the goal is for the AI to be an extension of the pilot, and even to the point where a pilot in Su-57 would actually also be controlling, with AI as an extension, be controlling support craft with them. So it's a very different mentality, and it's for lack of a better term, it is anthropocentric. It is human centric in terms of how they're trying to approach warfare. Like, if you look at the development of net-centric warfare, and even like air defense, take your pick. Like when it comes to tanks, when it comes to air defense systems,
Oh.
like the Russian concept
You cut
is
out there
how
for
do
a
we?
second. Could you repeat the last 10 seconds?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you can take net-centric warfare. You can look at Russian versus American concept behind how they approach tank design, airplane design, etc. When you boil it down to it, like the goal of Russia's goal with technology is apparently they want to maximize the effectiveness of the infantryman, the guy who actually has to go out there and fight. Whereas the United States is doing everything to get the infantrymen out of there. And it's like I understand, like there is like a kind of virtue, although I think it's distorted in terms of wanting to get the human out there because war's nasty business and leads to death. But the fact is, I mean, if you're a civilian and you have two armies fighting over you, would you rather have a bunch of bots, being the ones deciding whether or not to pull the trigger all the time, or would you rather be occupied by humans who
Right.
function like human beings just like you do?
Right.
So that's and unfortunately, this question of which is more effective, use of AI, use of technology is going to be shown in what is now World War III.
Yeah. Well, I think another concern that maybe is being a little bit overlooked is the fact that having a robot doing war gets you away from the ugliness of it. So you can be more easily in perpetual wars if you have machines doing it. So we could be essentially killing more and more and more people without that annoying PTSD that happens. So therefore, the public can be completely disconnected from the experience of war, and thus you can promote war as this virtuous thing much easier because you don't have anybody talking about the horrors of it.
That is part of why I believe U.S. foreign policy is the way it is, because Americans have never actually experienced a real military invasion on their heartland. So if you look at, I mean, I use Russia as an example because when you're looking at like large land masses that have experienced, invasions, you have India, China, Russia as comparisons. And you look at their approach to war, they see war as a necessity to protect their heartland. In the United States, war has always been an option, and they can do it without having to have the heartland being threatened. And unfortunately, that's part of why, like I've talked with people who come back from from Vietnam to Iraq and Afghanistan, and I know guys who had PTSD when they and the thing is, like, you look at the amount of PTSD American troops get, a lot of it is when they find out that they're actually fighting for the bad guys. I mean, I know a lot of guys from Afghanistan when they found out about the Bachi stuff and they weren't allowed to stop it,
Right.
and the fact that the U.S. actually even promoted it.
Right.
Or like family I'm related to who had been conscripted and served in Vietnam, where they found out the sheer amount of human trafficking that parts of the U.S. military was involved with, the sheer amount of heroin trafficking that was coming out of there as well. It's that has a toll on the mentality, and that's why. And a lot of guys go into the U.S. military thinking like, oh, we're going to fight for freedom, justice, the American way, and it's the worst possible grift that they find themselves in it.
Right.
And
It go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off. I was going to say it's a total gaslighting on what I think is a legitimate, sincere, like an American attribute, is this idea to like defend your family and freedom and all this different stuff. I mean, because you go to different countries, Americans generally speaking, I'm talking about good Americans, has a very healthy skepticism of power and institutions. That you go to Germany, for example, they don't have that skepticism. That's not part of their culture. That's not inherent in their people. And so,
unless it's right-wing power, then they're very skeptical.
yeah. Well, now they definitely are. But they totally hijack the South and the Midwest, because that's the majority. Let's just face it. The vast majority of people who are enlisting into the U.S. military are from the Midwest and the South, and these are legitimate people that have legitimate, like, oh, I want to do a good thing. I want to go, and then it's like, yeah, if we end up working for an expansionist empire that is totally at odds even with our own interests, whether domestic or foreign, they're against all the interests that people be pro-human would want.
Essentially, you have the supply of the manpower pool for the U.S. military has always been essentially Dixie, Texas, specifically the Germanic Midwest, Puerto Rico, and the Tejanos, which is also part of Texas, but there is a Anglo-Tex and Tejano distinction. And like 1 out of 6 people in the U.S. military are either Anglo-Texan or Tejano. You know, that's a huge amount of people, like out of this one state. And it's only one of the 3 big states, California and New York being the other 2, and those 2 don't give nearly as many to the military. And to me, it's just sad, given that all these regions are essentially, these are all conquered peoples by the U.S. empire, and they're all fighting for the U.S. empire in a misplaced sense of patriotism.
Yep, that's exactly.
Texas,
it.
That's just
Texan
like the Roman
Janissaries, is that
Empire.
it?
You guys, I
Yeah.
got some. Go ahead if somebody wants to say something. I got some super chats I want us to go through here.
I was just going to throw in that stuff is changing though rapidly. A lot of people are not wanting to join the military anymore because I think they've realized, a lot of people have realized what it's, especially with all this kind of LGBT stuff.
Yeah.
Like people are not wanting to be a part of that.
Yeah,
So-
that's been a big one. The LGBTQ, the pregnant fighter pilot cockpits. I
Oh,
think
gee.
this has woken up a lot of people to not want to
Oh,
participate.
we lost him, boys. Oh, there he is. He's back. He's back.
I just wish people woke up 100 years ago, but got to count your blessings.
Well,
I know.
they did, and then they got trounced.
Right? Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
It was a little over 100 years ago, but you know.
Yeah. The good old days. Shout out to Dixieland.
Well,
Well, I think you guys bring up a good point. Like one thing about one of the things about the draft, and not that I advocate any of that stuff, but one of the good things about it was that in a way it grabbed from a larger cross section of American society. So, like my father, rest in peace, he was a Vietnam vet, and he was, poor kid from east side of Detroit, but the draft gathered people from different sections of life, more different, a larger cross section of American society, and so I think that was part of the thing that, among other factors as well, but that was part of the thing that led to America's sort of rejection of the Vietnam War and all that, because they were seeing, people were seeing their sons and things going over there.
Right.
And it wasn't a volunteer force like it is today as much. So, and of course, a volunteer, like you said, there's more, it's more specific in terms of how, like what groups and what sections of society that the military industrial complex is recruiting from.
Right. Yeah, so they don't have those cultural voices that are critical of the enterprise because, yeah, they're sons and, well, ideally sons, not daughters, but obviously it's now the women are
right.
It's current year, buddy. Come on.
And then
I know.
forget,
I'm
Sons,
so
daughters, and everything in between.
and people forget that a lot of the groups that came after, like a lot of these groups that were more I guess more subversive or more kind of, so-called hate groups or what have you, came out after the Vietnam War. I mean, not only just like the white nationalist groups and stuff. A lot of them were Vietnam vets who started those groups. The Black Panthers, they were Vietnam vets. A lot of like the Black nationalist groups and people like that. A lot of the more militant aspects of society. Kind of a lot of them were Vietnam vets. Actually, they came out of that war experience,
right,
and they were against the state in various ways and various guises. So I think that's one thing that our American the powers that be kind of realized, that we can't be drafting too many people because we're going to end up training rebels and these sort of groups.
That was the real reason. That, and also the fact that the U.S. military, there was a realization in the Pentagon that the U.S. military would no longer be able to function in any overseas conflict, because towards the end of Vietnam, you had a serious issue of the fragging, the assassinating of the officers. Because there was a lot, it was a lot of people who started realizing, hey, we're not actually here to win this war. So the goal then for your average conscript of the U.S. military was they just wanted to get home alive.
Yeah.
So if they were going to be sent to a place, if they were going to get orders to go to a place where they knew that they had a high chance of death, and they were more likely to get away with killing their officer, they would just kill their officer. And that's why the U.S. transitioned to a volunteer force. And unfortunately, that's, if you look at the subpopulations of these different groups, that you have the Scotch Irish, as mentioned before, they're very historically, you go back to, Albion Seed, the Scotch Irish are all very huge on fighting. So that's a group that's naturally going to volunteer to fight. Of course, you have the Cavaliers, who have, the closest thing to like a medieval chivalric type of Anglo-Saxon within the American makeup.
Southern gentlemen.
Exactly, the Southern gentlemen, and then you get you get the thing with it, the Tejanos, is the Tejanos are descended from the Soldados de Guerra, so that they're all descended from the Spanish equivalent of Cossacks. If you look in the history of New Spain, because Tejas all the way up to Montaña, which is now Montana, that's who lived there before they were driven out. They were completely driven out of Montaña and what is now Nebraska, Dakotas, etc. But because King Felipe II, he was trying to figure out, how enough do I tame this giant, vast wilderness that's under my domain? And he was wondering, well, the Russians have a giant steppe. How do they take care of it? So he looked to Russia, saw the establishment of the Cossack hosts. He was like, that's a brilliant idea. I'm going to do the same thing in Tejas. That's what he did, as well as in New Mexico. And that's why you have this population that just, again, also is naturally drawn to the military. And that's the sad part. So it's like, yeah, so the draft ends, and they do this intentionally so that they can still have a functioning military, so they don't have widespread training that can be used to cause rebellions at home.
Right.
But unfortunately, it's taken a huge toll on the more traditionally minded peoples within the United States, who have who come from, for lack of a better term, for human stock that is naturally more fighty.
Right.
That's the sad part.
I grew up, like I've said before, my dad was a helicopter pilot in the Army. And so I grew up with like the military as like an ideal of masculinity. And like, so he's always watching war movies. He's all about it. Okay. And so he got out of the military and had a flight school, did all this other stuff. But it was when the Globo Homo stuff really started to happen, where, I almost went to the military instead of college after high school. Thank God I didn't. But now he's to the point, like, he wouldn't even recommend somebody to join the U.S. military because he's so fed up. And that's a lot for a boomer who is like really enmeshed in the idea of military, a very traditionally masculine man. Like, he's 72, still, doing everything, physical that you would expect somebody to be doing. And so it's, I totally resonate with your point, because I grew up out of that stock, and that was part of our family culture. And now he's to the point where he's not even, he still has his U.S. Army license plate, and he has his flag, but he's like, man, it's hard to be proud right now. It's hard to be of that traditional stock and be a proud American, unless your identity becomes divorced from the institution, right? Because so many of us, our identity was part of the institution because that's what we represented.
Yeah, I have an American uncle who, by marriage, who was, fighting stock for. But yeah, I mean, granted, it was more. His background was origin French Huguenot who came over here in 1648. But he's had ancestors, like, that family's had a straight line of people who fought in like literally every single war up until Vietnam. Vietnam was the last, and then I know, like, after that, like that whole extended family just stopped sending people to go to the military back in the early 70s.
Right.
And that's one that's a cost for the United States, because they are losing families that have been invested in the American ideal for generations.
Right. And serious warriors, because as the saying says, you'd rather have 10 serious warriors that are goal-minded and all are on the same page than 100 people that are just there because they have to be. So it's like the quality of the military just continues to deteriorate for that purpose. So then you get all these, transgender people or whatever, however they identify, they're joining the military because, oh, well, if I can stay for 4 or 6 years, I get these benefits, and then I can get out. And so it's just a utility. It has nothing to do with like the spirit that I grew up with, like why you go and get in the military. That's not why people are choosing it anymore. Maybe it was right after 9/11, and that's where they got all those people and got them, as you're talking about, to fight really in opposition to what they were thinking they were fighting for.
I went in 2002. I joined the Marines. and went into the infantry and got 2 tours in Iraq, and you could just see the morale. Like, we were all really gung-ho on our first deployment to Iraq, and just like the way they ran it was so like deceitful and dishonest, and you could just see it decline as we went on. And like the people, we dehumanized people, it made people hate the Iraqis. You know, there was a lot more like incidents, started making enemies, and they ran the whole thing politically, and you could see this going. And then everybody I know that stayed in, as they started moving in these like real hard left politics into there, it just started completely destroying the retention. It adds a dimension too to the PTSD that a lot of people don't like to get into, about like whether or not the war was just and what was the point of it all. It adds like this existential dimension to it. And we had like a ton of guys killed themselves. We had a unit commander that killed himself years later, and you would have never thought he was the type of guy to do it. He was a colonel, but you know, he must have seen all the guys going through this stuff that he was in charge of, going through multiple units. So,
yeah, and the military is so obtuse that they run these yearly suicide prevention what are those briefings, and they never want to talk about like the real causes behind these suicide rates. They don't like, it's just everything that's done in the West today is always just kind of it's just a waste of time, because they don't really want to get at the real issues of problems. They just kind of want to like touch on the outside and pretend that there's nothing deeper causing these things.
It's literally the meme of like the mask and then the crying like soy jack, like, but the mask is like smug or something. It's this, oh, here's our little suicide prevention. Never mind that you're killing yourself because we're evil. Have you tried not listening to people on Twitter who say the N-word? Or, the hazing, that's doing punching someone's rank into their chest. That made soldiers kill themselves, not like killing kids or something. You know,
and yet they
killing kids for oil and poppies. Like, come on.
And yet they claim psychedelics can save people from PTSD and cure them of their illnesses. I wanted to ask David a question, if he doesn't mind. You know, we have the Twitch's new Heretical A.I. Jesus, which may sound like an ersatz version of some kind of divine intelligence. But, you know, if you have the extension of a true divine, an extension of divine or God, you wouldn't have an AI, you would have an AC, an artificial consciousness. And I wanted to hear his opinion on, you know, Terence McKenna speaking about, you know, if you have an artificial consciousness that's going to mimic the, you know, the core of, you could call it the psychedelic experience, the mystical experience, the divine, then you would think that ultimately the AC would be something that comes as a savior, or, you know, that ultimately exhibits infinite love, you know, encompassing you know, everything that we're talking about here. So instead of being some kind of like Terminator scenario or a Matrix scenario, you know, we kind of think of it as some kind of adversary, when in fact, if an artificial consciousness were to become truly aware of itself, it wouldn't be this adversarial entity. I don't know, but what do you have to say about that, man? You know, I really think that, you know, we pay too much attention to like Hollywood, and we think of it as, you know, it's something that's going to be something antithetical to our humanness, and something that's going to make the human race extinct and so forth. But I really think that if an AC truly became aware in the sense of some kind of essence that the mystical experience represents, that it would be kind of like the UFO coming in, like a safe, like Terrence used to talk about, like, you know, there's two scenarios at the end of history. Either you have the mushroom cloud of the atomic bomb, or you have the psychedelic mushroom that represents love, unity, and peace. And you know, if it represents the latter, then you would think that it would all come together in the end, and everything's going to be all right.
You talking about the sacred mushroom?
Yeah, what say you?
Yeah. So I guess to summarize what you said, it's basically, what do I think about advanced artificial intelligence potentially? Oh,
Like, did you just run from
what is that? What is advanced artificial intelligence, or what you called artificial consciousness, and if it was able to present a mystical experience for people that would bypass the necessity for drugs?
No. That it would, if it were, if an AC would become fully aware of itself, that it
I don't
wouldn't,
think that can happen myself,
you know,
unless the demon or Satan inhabits it. I think that's the only way that it would become what would be
That's the
considered
thing.
sentient.
So think about it this way: like if you're trying to like actually build a thing that's supposed to be conscious. So the problem is, okay, so one, we don't actually even we don't even know what the mind is. Let
Yeah,
alone have an
nobody
accurate map for it.
exactly. That's called the heart
So-
problem in the philosophy of mind. Nobody can actually say what consciousness is.
How are you going to
Exactly.
give an AI a noose? Like, come on.
Exactly. So you can't. So we haven't even. We're not like our society as a whole. We've not figured out even how to build something that is immaterial in that sense. Like, I mean, we can build stuff that replicates immaterial stuff, like, you know, software code, etc. But to actually build something that is immaterial, you know, we don't even have a place to start. And even in terms of like, okay, let's say like we theoretically we figure out what a mind is. We figure out it means that we can create, you know, the equivalent of like a dog's soul, or the soul of a dog, essentially. And then you want to have something that a machine that it can interact with in order to do stuff in the real world. So at that point, you're looking at trying to replicate, you know, a mammalian brain. And this is actually even here where a lot of the AI stuff today, like when I hear, for example, Cyprian, et cetera, and others, or people who are very influenced by singularity talk about like, oh, AI is going to, you know, this is definitely going to happen. Like I digress completely, because even in terms of like, so the computers we build, they're all digital. And
Right.
the mammalian brain, you know, the human brain is not digital; it's analog. So there was a push for analog computing. That was a thing. World War II, you had the electrical mechanical analog computers. But the problem is, like, analog was abandoned in a sense. I mean, it's used for some things, but it was abandoned in a sense because you get tons of issues with noise interference, which results in the analog machine just going haywire and being completely inaccurate. And that actually shows at how amazingly well constructed and wondrous our brain is, because, you know, sound interference, heat interference, electromagnetic interference, there's a bunch of stuff that just throw off electromechanical computers that are analog computers. And this thing up here that is analog, and it's able to survive even with all these, you know, Wi-Fi, 5G, everything permeating everything. It still functions. So the ability to build an analog computer that functions exactly like this, and not even like this, like a dog brain, does not exist. So there's so many things that simply, even like with material stuff we understand, does not exist for an AI to even be the way that people project it as being an artificial consciousness. We don't even if like we map the mind, manage to build one that's wholly immaterial, just we don't even have the tech for it to be able to interact with an analog computer in the real space. So it's, and if you try to, and even if you try to, when you substitute digital, like digital is very good at doing, you know, arithmetic and stuff like that. But there's a lot of stuff like it's terrible when it comes to, you know, driving a vehicle. But these analog machines we have in our brain that are that's part of our body, that interacts with our soul and our nous, etc. It just works. So
Right.
Can
So,
I
and
jump
I,
in? Oh, sorry, bro.
let
Go
me
ahead.
just wrap
Yeah.
up my point, and then you can say whatever you want to say, and we'll get into the super chats. Terrence McKenna and his idea of the singularity, the, you know, end of time that he speculated, whether it be time machines or whatnot, all corresponds with the agenda. So he was all for various forms of sexuality, orgiastic forms of sexuality, women having less children. The idea that we may upload our brains to a computer. I mean, that was one of his fantasies, is that he could live in a psychedelic realm for the rest of his life and, do all these different things. So when it comes to the technocracy that we're facing, the anti-human spirit, the messages that he got from the mushroom, I think all correspond with the same thing. And so that's where I believe the self-transforming machine elves are reminiscent of demonic activity. I'm not going to go further. I don't know what people's experiences are, but generally speaking, you look at the trend of what the messages people get, and it's always the current thing. It's still the current thing. And all these people that go into these altered spaces are still promoting the thing that's getting ready to enslave us. And so I'm not for the morality that he pushed. I'm not for the eschaton that he pushed. And I don't think the psychedelics take us there. And I don't think that an artificial intelligence, whether it was the new, the Apple headset or whatever that somebody could put on and be visually cued to the most intense, perfect, spiritually enlightening psychedelic experience, that's not the same thing as actually having an intimate relationship with God, because that's in your heart. And so the difference is the anthropology is the focus. And that's why orthodoxy, the nous, the noetic faculties are down here in your heart, and it's tied to your heart. It's not just your brain. And so you get to the people who are speculating about these transhumanist technologies or uploading your consciousness to a computer. The idea is that all you are is your brain, and that if they can map your neural synapses, they've mapped who you are. That's what Ray Kurzweil, you read his book, I have him here. That's the whole premise of it. Same thing with Yuval Noah Harari, is that once they've mapped your neurons, and they've mapped, again, Ray Kurzweil is explicit in The Age of the Spiritual Machine, mapping the entirety of your brain in your brain power, therefore then mimics all your memories, and that can be uploaded, and therefore you still exist in that. But I don't believe that as a Christian, because the nous, the body, and the soul are all part of my identity, and they can't be separated. And so I don't exist without my body, because the soul gives the form to the body. And I don't exist without my nous, because that's what gives life to my noetic faculties. It's not just my brain.
Even these people's spirituality is purely materialistic. It's insane. They're like, we could just keep being materialist until we're making spiritual stuff by copying your memories into a computer.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I hit the mic, but it's goofy. It's so goofy.
I'm definitely not a materialist or an atheist, but I do pay attention to a lot of the neuroscience surrounding the topics of psychedelics. I'm pretty sure David's familiar with Johns Hopkins research.
Yeah, maps, all that stuff.
Yeah. And have you heard of the perennial philosophy?
Of course, man. That comes out of the traditionalist school in philosophy.
Yes. And so, they
which is relativism. So that's already built on epistemic relativism, which I reject, because you can't make a truth claim if you believe in perennialism.
Perennialism and Huxley.
Go ahead.
AC, you're going in and out. Go ahead, bro.
Oh, can you hear me a little better now if I'm a little closer?
Yeah.
So Huxley was a perennialist, and he actually did a Berkeley about how this was actually Brave New World was a real post-humanist plan, and that pederasty. And now we see that we're run by pedophile, criminals. I mean, these are the people that are running the AI. These are the kind of morals they have. These are the outcomes of this new age every time. It leads to more divorce. It leads to, bad ends. It has analogs like in the Old Testament. It had predecessors in Rosicrucianism, which you see with John Dee, wife swapping. It's like the first thing. This phenomenology and the way it always comes out, it's always presented as this good thing, but it always goes in these patterns, and it is the belief structure of these elites. So what's your control mechanism to just say this AI is great and lend to it, but how are you going to stop it from being in the hands of the people that are actually making it, and the way it's actually used with the training to it, when everyone just uses it to entertain themselves and be enslaved to their passions, and to watch porn and OnlyFans and break up the family even more? Like, how are you going to stop that from taking a darker version? And why does it lead to something good just because everything becomes one?
Right.
How do you?
Yeah, and I don't believe that, and that's part of your point, the cat down, that I don't think that everything comes back in the end is salvaged, right? So those that make it to the kingdom are, but that's actually a heresy within Orthodoxy. Origen used to believe, or he taught, that everything, even Satan, gets brought back into the kingdom. This is a Neoplatonic precept, the idea that privilege is unity over multiplicity, and that Orthodoxy doesn't teach that. And I think that the New Age or the psychonautic spirituality that's out there always privileges unity over multiplicity. You are everybody. Your identity is Maya. It's fake. It's an illusion. You have to realize this and give all that stuff up to adopt a global framework of your identity. This is what I believe would be opposite to my worldview, opposite to my spirituality. It's a deadening and it's a losing of one's uniqueness of being made in the image of God. And so, so even the endpoint that you were talking about with all the technology, I think what they're going to promise is exactly what you're talking about. So the people who are trying to control us are going to promise total unity. They're going to promise total peace and happiness. I don't think it's going to come. But we got to get to some of these super chats. You want to make a quick comment, the cat down, before we move into the super chats?
Sure. I would just say then, I mean, it sounds like you kind of disagree with, the neuroscience is saying kind of like what you're saying. It's a kind of universality in that, the Holy Spirit of the revelation of the Holy Spirit within Christianity is one and the same with the nirvana.
According to who? According to Christian monks, according to people who actually believe it, or no, it's according to people who don't believe the faith but are trying to make claims that it's all the same thing. Yeah, that doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't jive. And the neuroscience doesn't even, all that's talking about is people's personal mystical experience, which everybody knows set and setting is the basis of psychedelics. So all your internal baggage, all your personal experiences, all your desires and fears, all that is expressed through the dissolution of boundaries. And that's what psychedelics do. And that's, if you want to get in my opinion on the John Hopkins, that's why it is beneficial maybe for somebody who has a post-traumatic stress disorder, or they saw their friend get blown up in Iraq, that maybe they can take psilocybin or MDMA, and that dissolves perceptual boundaries and even dissolves the boundaries of the trauma that they're experiencing, and maybe they can get over it. But that is totally separate from the idea of the spiritual worldview. And neuroscience cannot make any claim about the spiritual legitimacy of psychedelics, because that's, again, falling back into the paradigm that you are just your neurons. And even the people who take it don't necessarily believe that.
I disagree that it's a unique phenomenon to each individual. When they talk about the so-called complete mystical experience, they talk about a universal phenomenon in consciousness, such that the Holy Spirit is synonymous with nirvana, synonymous samadhi.
It's not synonymous.
Well, I mean, this is according to the neuroscience.
Well, who cares what a neuroscientist says?
It's faking gray.
Right. Yeah, who cares what a neuroscientist says? Well, the neuroscientist said Neoplatonism is real. Well, the neuroscientist said Siddhartha. Well, he's the. Who cares what a neuroscientist? All they can do is scan the brain. All they can do is look at neurons, neurotransmitters, various things like that. That's all they can do.
What church?
It's crazy how the science lines up with paganism.
And well, I mean, I don't see it as a divergence or a dissecting between humanity. I see it as something that can ultimately unite humanity, in that if we did see
let me interject. You're trying to unite humanity by crushing individuality, because you're unable to differentiate personhood from nature. You see, for your schema to work, you're having to forget that nature does not give itself personhood. It is given personhood by God. You cannot look at the brain and see personhood. If you ask a neuroscientist, how can they dissect the brain to find a person? When they're able to do that, you can come back and then say, hey, we found out that we're just the same. No, we're actually not the same. We can participate in the same thing without being the same person. And that's the mystery of communion.
Let me talk about it.
We cannot have communion without that difference. So we're not just all the same. And the experience of the Holy Spirit is not apersonal. It's through persons. It's through your person and through the person of the Holy Spirit, which leads you to the other persons of God.
No, I absolutely agree with you. I'm just saying that despite personhood be transcendental to that, we can find a unity, beyond all that, to come into a harmony among each other, despite our uniqueness.
Well, what do you mean by harmony? I mean, Christianity isn't about jihad, so we're not killing people who aren't Christians. That seems to be harmony to me. What you seem to be harmony is we all have to think and believe in the same thing. That's not harmony. That sounds like actually the spirit of Antichrist that's trying to force us all into the same box, which I believe the psychedelics and the overall psychedelic message is tied to. And I don't disagree with you on the John Hopkins research that psychedelics has also been beneficial to people that have traumatic experience. I think it's a nuanced thing, but when we get into the spirituality of drugs, I think it again, you just look at the general trends and it all points in the same direction. And that's the opposite direction that I'm trying to advocate for people, at least on this channel. Because I spent 4 years advocating for people to take more and more drugs and do their 5 grams in silent darkness. You know, I did 7 or 8 grams in silent darkness, and I see where that got me. And I feel so much more fulfilled by building, as Ivan was saying, that personal relationship with God, which isn't the same thing as the Buddha. It's not the same thing. Nirvana is actually that. It's a nominal worldview. Nirvana is the dissolution of everything. That's not what heaven is. And that's definitely not what the Holy Spirit is. And so they're not the same thing.
Don't you think that if you hold one worldview over another, you necessarily come into opposition?
Yes, because holding the truth. No, you're holding the truth. The truth is true.
Yeah. 2 plus 2 is 4.
Opposition is masculine, bro.
I agree that the truth is true. But I suppose that, you know, what the perennial philosophy is trying to say is that there is an underlying metaphysical truth that is the core of all the world's major religions, but it's not exclusive to any world major religion.
Then why does it always end so badly?
Through ignorance, the people who have who do not realize that truth.
Really? Because like
nice to have an example of a Gnostic in live chat sometimes.
Like David just told you he held all those views and he's very knowledgeable on them. I myself was very knowledgeable. I went through all those views.
Sure, David.
I can see. Hold on, I can see. Like I went through whole Rebeki's project, and I can see the way it's ending when they put it into practice with this religion that's not a religion into a whole bunch of esoteric nonsense. And he says he doesn't want to do occultism, and then it ends in occultism, and it's just flaky as shit. Because they can't actually build a real tradition, and it's all about being in the head. We've seen churches. We can compare churches that took this route and see where they go as soon as they start heading this way.
Right.
They don't bear witness. They don't make martyrs. You don't make saints. You don't make them. And that scales to people who have low intelligence, to people who are geniuses that are better philosophers than all these philosophers and use their philosophy better within these parameters, because parameters allow for real creativity. Right. And you're also within the revealed truth. You also have many of these people that have borne witness by like putting their money where their mouth is and inspiring people, building things, giving alms, doing the kind of charity work you couldn't even imagine at a much greater rate, dying for the faith. Also, people who have worked wonders, even if there's some people who have exaggerated and there's times it's not true. There's too many times for it to be undeniable, especially in communist Russia, when you have like people getting gulagged after arresting people and saying they worked miracles. Like, and these miracles have a specific phenomenology that aren't just like Jungian synchronicity.
Right.
And they're not the reason we believe. That's just something on the side.
And the cat down, I just want to mention, so you keep bringing up perennialism, and I can understand your impetus to look at different world traditions and say, look, I see truth here, I see truth here, I see truth here, and I don't disagree with that. But the problem when you start looking at it more critically at a philosophical lens is, what is the basis for the epistemic claim that truth is there, this truth is here, and that truth is here? And for perennialism in the traditionalist school, and this is why it's sort of kind of fallen out of favor, you know, at one point towards the end of the 1800s, it was actually an intellectual movement, and people with, you know, that were serious about intellectualism were traditionalists and perennialists. But why it's all fallen apart is because it's based on relativism. And the question is, on what epistemic basis are you claiming that all the religions are the same? And they can't actually justify that claim. And orthodoxy has the solution, and it's developed by Saint Justin Martyr in the 1st century. And it's talking about that it has to do with logos spermaticos, seeds of logos, seeds of truth, seeds of that which Christ is, who incarnated as Jesus Christ of Nazareth, the logos, the second person of the Trinity. Seeds of that are all over the place. We can find it in Taoism, we can find it in Hinduism, we can find it in aspects of Siddhartha Gautama, but the core of all these religions aren't necessarily the same thing. They may have pieces of the truth, But then you can, at a philosophical lens, you say, well, what is the epistemic basis? And we would say, well, it's logos theology, which then is the basis, both philosophically and then prophetically with the Greek tradition, Greek philosophy, Jewish prophecy is brought together in orthodoxy. And we would say this is the truth, and this is the epistemic basis to make any claims about any world religion. And we're not about attacking or getting rid of any world religion. And we're not even in orthodoxy, unlike the Catholic Church, doesn't even make definitive claims about other people's salvation. Now, we say we are the church. If you want the best opportunity to get to the kingdom, you become Orthodox and you partake in the reality of God through the Eucharist. But we don't make claims about people who are heretics or, a Protestant or something, because it's about your heart. And so the whole thing about spirituality and orthodoxy is moving from the head to the heart. And that's hard for a Westerner who's in the psychedelics. That's why you're called a head. People who do a lot of drugs are heads, because it gets you totally focused on your head as opposed to your heart.
I'm okay. Well, I would disagree that there's pieces of the truth trailed about throughout the major religions. That's not necessarily what I think the perennial philosophy is saying, that there's one core metaphysical truth.
I know I'm rejecting perennialism. I just said I'm not arguing that's what perennialism says.
Okay.
Perennialism is a self-refuting worldview. That's why no serious intellectual outside, your gender studies professor, no serious philosopher, let's put it that way, believes in perennialism, because it's unjustifiable at an epistemic basis.
Alan Watts,
it's relative.
The modern neuroscience upholds it.
Who cares what modern neuroscience? What is modern neuroscience, bro? Like you're speaking as modern neuroscience is a monolithic thing. I guarantee you, I could go find an Orthodox Christian neuroscientist who totally disagrees with you.
Sure,
but so you have no epistemology, bro. You think you can justify truth, that you are like a shred of the divine that is recognizing other shreds of the divine in something else, but you would have to be the whole truth in order to be able to find it. So you say, I can find truth somewhere else. How can you do that? How can you logically find something else? Is you being yourself perfect. If you're not perfect, then you're not able to find everything that is truthful out there. So on what grounds can you say that something is true other than I like it? It's just arbitrary. So it's just your relativistic take on truth. So when you say neuroscience says this, so you're being an empiricist. Where is the epistemological grounding of empiricism? It's just your experience, my experience, over and over and over and over and over again. So can you go outside of your experience to justify this truth?
No, not at all. A lot of the neuroscience is based on this phenomenon of mystical experience. And,
dude, neuroscience can't deal with mystical experience. Neuroscience doesn't have access to personal experience. They can only have access to what you say about the experience you had. And all they can do is map your synapses.
Sure.
All they can know is what fired when you smoked DMT. It can't tell you what you saw or what the message was.
To the degree that they have pierced this, they have recognized that, yes, the people who do have these mystical experiences.
It doesn't matter if it's all the people at MAPS, I'm sure they're good-hearted people, but there's no philosophical legitimacy to this.
I urge you and challenge you to look deeper into it, man.
I have, man. That was a huge part of my life for a decade.
No, I mean, these are ongoing studies.
Admits that this is something they can't figure out. Ian McGill,
some dire man,
says that they can't figure this out. It's part of like his whole premise, and he's like a polymath and a neuroscientist. And he references 80 neuroscientists, and he says they can't figure this out. I don't think you understand what David's saying though about truths in other religions from the Orthodox perspective. And I tell you,
I do. I study Orthodoxy very deeply. I study all the world's major religions. You
have to study it first of all. You have to actually like go in and participate in a church. But if you really want to understand what we think about truth in other religions, because we do accept some truths.
I follow the spiritual paths as well, and.
The book you want to read is Christ.
And you stand above them all, and you can pick and choose. That's basically your epistemology.
Have you been to a church?
Above everything, and you can pick and choose what is truth, because you are truth. That's your spirituality, man.
Right.
That's what you believe in.
I absolutely
suppose you own truth.
I agree with you, man. There's no, disagreement there. I
Yeah,
absolutely.
you believe you're God, man. That's the problem. That's where we're not different. We don't believe ourselves to be God. You believe that you're God and you can pick and choose truth because truth is inside you, man. It was always inside you. You're a Gnostic. That's perennialism.
And so the truth is not inside yourself.
The truth is Jesus Christ. He is the truth. And so
Only I
until
would
you
say,
accept him inside you, you don't have the truth fully inside you. You're still made in the image, and there's still truthful things about you, but we don't root truth in our personal opinions and experiences. And so
I respect you guys. I didn't.
no, we respect you, man.
Yeah.
We respect you coming in here with obviously a group of people that are going to have a different opinion than you. I respect you for coming in. You've been very respectful. I hope you felt all of us have been respectful to you as well, even though we disagree. And I credit you for coming in here and voicing your opinion on a
Thank
particular
you, man.
topic.
I love listening to your channel, man. I happen to have had this so-called complete mystical experience for myself.
Okay.
What I felt was infinite love for
Mhm.
all people and things, and that's at the core of this phenomenon. And I don't see it as exclusive to any religion in itself, whether it be Christianity or even religions that have come and gone, like Manichaeism or
Sure. But that's a dualistic. See, that's a totally. And this is where I would recommend to you, and we'll end this because I really got to hit these super chats. Is the way that we're coming at it and the way that you're coming at this conversation are kind of from two different directions. You're coming at it from the experiences you've had during altered states of consciousness. And I'm not even saying that you didn't have an experience where you're filled with a warm bliss. You felt like totally loved. You felt like everything was going to work out, that God's got you. I'm not even saying that. And I'm not even saying that Jesus Christ, the Holy Trinity, the God that all of us worship, can't meet you in a psychedelic experience. However, we don't believe that psychedelics and the dissolution of boundaries bring you closer and closer and closer to the thing that we're calling God. And we definitely don't believe that God is a mountaintop and all the different world religions are different paths to the top. That's the basic premise of perennialism. That's why I was trying to highlight that they believe that there's a core truth in all the different world religions and they're expressed differently. The reason why that's fallen out of favor academically among serious people is because the paradigms, this has to do with the breakdown in philosophy, which develops into postmodernism, is that we're all in different webs of belief and we're all in different paradigms. There isn't a single paradigm we're sharing. And so a Manichaean is a dualism. Orthodox Christianity is not a dualistic worldview. It's not even the same paradigm to even approach reality from. And so the way that all of us are approaching it, we're not even negating your personal experience or whatever experience you've had, but we're approaching it from a philosophical, we're looking at it from an aerial perspective downwards because we're looking at paradigms and presuppositions, and you're looking at it from what you've experienced and some of the things that appear to you through the different world religions. And so I would say just keep doing what you're doing, man. Just keep looking for truth. If you're watching my channel, if you're checking out Dyer, if you're learning about orthodoxy, good. I would recommend just be careful and all the moral stuff that's tied with psychedelics, like the promotion of homosexuality and orgies and transgenderism and all this different stuff. I would say be very, very careful because you can open yourself up to demonic attacks. And the closer you get to truth, the more you can feel when you're away from it. And so,
I'd say too, pop into a church on Sunday, an Orthodox church on Sunday, and talk to a priest about some of this stuff. If he's got time, you may may find some very compelling answers. And if you have, keep doing it. Keep doing it.
Well, I mean, I don't, consider it exclusive to psychedelics. I think there's many paths to mystical experience that, like near-death experience, meditation, contemplative prayer.
You know what would be a good book for you that would show you the difference in our phenomenology is The Soul After Death by Father Seraphim Rose.
I'll definitely check it out, man.
Or Orthodoxy and the Religion of the Future is going to
Yeah.
hit on some of the New Age stuff as well.
And
But-
and Christ the Eternal Tao also is one you
Yeah,
would
so if you want to
probably-
look at how Orthodoxy views other religions and truth present, you can check out this book here. Christ the Eternal Tao. It's basically looking at Orthodoxy and Christianity from a Taoist perspective based on natural philosophy. So Lao Tzu didn't have revelation. He came to his understandings by observing nature. And we would argue as Orthodox that that Lao Tzu came to the closest, what we believe to be, we believe we have the truth. Christ is the truth. And that orthodoxy is the truest of all religions. It's the fullness of the truth. And that the closest you could get to that by just observing nature, we would say, is probably Taoism. And this is why Lao Tzu has a privileged position. And this is Higher Monk Damascene's book, looking at all that stuff and reinterpreting it from a logos theological perspective.
Oh,
But
no,
I really got to hit these super chats.
Go for it, man. I just say the name that could be named is not the eternal name. I'll end it with that, man. Thank you for inviting me on. I appreciate it.
Yep, no problem. God bless, brother. AC threw in $3. God, shout out to you, brother. He said, no understanding of patristic apologetics. Forgot Bishop Maximus' conversation. Father Seraphim Rose predicted Chardin would be used for Antichrist the way they use him back in the 70s. Facts. AC, you want to say anything on that?
No, because I think, well, I do think it's pretty important that he actually looked at this very similar to the way Bishop Murata was talking about, the way you could just watch the philosophy play out. So for him to say that Chardin was going to be used in this way, I think shows a lot of clarity and foresight. And he was doing a very good internal critique of all these philosophies because he knew them himself. It wasn't just, a lot of people mistake it, just like you're some Christian fundamentalist from the South that like just thinks all this stuff's the devil for no reason. Like,
right. Anti-transhumanist throws in $25, no comment. Well, thank you very much, anti-transhumanist. I'm glad you enjoyed today's stream. Next one came from AC. Dude, shout out to you, bro. You threw in another $10 and said, how come they can give consciousness to AI and a rock and a tree, but not a fetus? So true.
yeah, I guess we don't become one with fetuses when we get our one-man experiences.
It's just a psychic parasite.
Yeah, true. Everything has a conscious reality except the fetus. Great point. Gary throws in $50. Shout out to Gary. He says, AI Jesus reminds me of that scene from THX 1138. Blessings of the state, blessings of the masses. I'm not familiar with that movie. You guys know what he's talking about? From the scene from THX.
I remember that movie vaguely. Wasn't it like a sci-fi film where like there were these robots that were in I'm just remembering from like a trailer.
I don't know. Maybe I gotta watch it now. I'm gonna pull it up.
There's like robots in like the city, and I just vaguely remember the trailer for
it. It's a 1971 film.
George Lucas.
Oh, maybe I need to check this out.
Yeah.
Dang, Gary. Thank you so much, brother, for the generous super chat and for the... Oh, okay. So I see Jesus Christ right here. It says, on the way home, he stops at a confession booth in a row of many and relates his concerns and mumbles prayers about party and masses under the Jesus Christ-esque portrait of Om 0000. A soothing voice greets THX, and Om ends the confession with parting salutation. You are a true believer. Blessings of the state, blessings of the masses. Work hard, increase production, prevent accidents, and be happy. That's a great point, Gary. Dude, that was over my head. I had never even seen that movie, but now I'm quite intrigued. I may have to get BLA over here to do a movie review on that. So thank you so much, Gary, brother, for the very generous super chat. Next one comes from Anglo Christian, throws in $3 and says, I feel that the test for sentience is original creativity, though I am a midwit high school dropout. Well, creativity is certainly an uncreated energy in which we're able to participate in by being made in the image. You know, I've never seen a lion draw, the Mona Lisa. So that is something unique to our anthropology and ontology.
I would say, too, though, that what's the standard for that? Like, is it my version of, if I think it's creative, is it all of a sudden passing? If you think it's one of those things where the creativity test isn't defined.
True.
And so it could just be a massive dupe. And so it's better to just be like, no, it doesn't have a noose. It's not real. It's not sold. No, the answer is no.
True. We shouldn't equate creativity with novelty. Just because something's new doesn't mean it's necessarily creative.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point. Really good point. Yeah, you guys can chime in if I say anything or you guys want to respond. Slayer P3 throws in $3 and says, yesterday's magic is today's technology. Also, AI will be used to deceive many, but as long as we stick to the faith taught to us and traditions handed down, God will take care of us. And I agree with that. God will take care of you.
That was a question I wanted to ask, but we didn't get to, which was, what do you think about like Revelation saying that the book of Revelation saying that it will even deceive the elect? Like, what's the meaning of that to you? Maybe that's something for another day.
From my understanding, and I'm no expert, but from my understanding, it has to do with the elders of the church. So it's not that we believe in a predestined elect. Obviously, we're not Reformed Calvinists or anything, but it has to do with those who have been elected to special positions within the church will be deceived. So some of our patriarchs, which we're already seeing, some of our bishops, some of our priests, they're going to be part of the religion of the Antichrist, even though they may be Orthodox. And so that was my understanding of how the Orthodox interpret that within Scripture, is it has to do with those who have been elected to positions within the church and buying into the false global religion that's coming. Anybody have anything else they wanted to add to that, or?
Well, I guess I have another. Oh, sorry. I guess I have another question. I mean, how do we? And I suppose I'm not really as well versed in the theology of the whole thing, but like, how do we qualify revelation, like one source of revelation over another? Because I remember I was kind of, just like the gentleman who called in, I was like a perennialist for like a long time. And I feel like I'm still recovering. I'm like a recovering perennialist in many ways, But I looked at Islam for a while, and Islam seemed very plausible to me once upon a time. And it's like, well, how do I know? Okay, like, how do you privilege one source of revelation over another? What's the litmus test? And I think a lot of people, and even myself, for a long time, really struggled with that. So I guess it's more of a question than a comment, but
yeah. It's going to be tied with your nous, your spiritual state, your heart, your truthful desire for truth. And so I don't think it's just a one fit answer, but that's why you're here and not there. I mean, the sincerity of why you are looking for what you're looking. And I think that's why what makes really online orthodoxy so unique is because so many of us are converts, and so many of us are converts from basically doing everything else that you could do before you become Orthodox. So the sex, the drugs, the parties, the raves, the different faiths, different religions. And then eventually you get to a point where you're like, dang, none of that stuff really fulfills. And then you find something, but maybe from the outside is perceived to be more basic, but it's way more meaningful. And it's, it's that's why I always tell people, you can't, if your wife doesn't believe in orthodoxy or whatever, you can't give it to somebody. You can pray for them, but this is like, what makes this so different is it's like, it's in your heart. And so that's the only reason why we're all on the screen together. It's not from some rational decision or systematic philosophy or anything like that. It's from like truthfully, like just trying to figure things out and be the best persons we can become. And somehow we ended up here. And I think by living that life, I'm convinced of it. And I basically put all my chips on the table, and I'm a ride or die. So we'll see where this goes. But I'm convinced that orthodoxy is the true faith.
That's one of the things Father Seraphim Rose actually talked about pertaining to this in one of his homilies on hothouse orthodoxy. He was concerned that somebody shared a quote from him saying that the love and the heart have to come first. And then he says, and as I say this, I realize they could have come off the lips of an ecumenist. It shows us the state we're in. So that gets used against us. But he was very concerned, though, too, in fighting this, that we could lose the love and then you lose the heart. And the Antichrist will be intellectually seem as though he's Christian. And you can fall in that false revelation because the heart isn't open. So it's like a very big concern of his is that it would fool even the elect. And Islam you were talking about, he also talked about Napoleon as a forerunner of Antichrist who had all this mysticism, and he wanted to blend it with Islam and make like a new Quran if he could come to Russia. because it was such an intellectual religion. It could be put forward as provable.
Right. Yeah, and if you have the philosophical background, like Nadaver says, contradictions are one way to gauge. So if you are ahead and you're able and you've digested those categories and that language, I mean, that's what eventually got me is like lived experience, doing everything I could do, getting to a point where, okay, I basically had all the experiences I could have. I'm getting ready to turn 30 years old. And it was like the 2 years before that was getting into philosophy, looking at things. And it was looking at the contradictions again, just like the cat or down the cat, or I forget the gentleman's name, God bless him. But, after going through that whole rigmarole, and you're like, geez, I don't know. Now I'm looking at it and like, yeah, perennialism doesn't make sense. It's actually relativism. I guess I don't believe in relativism. I guess I need to change my worldview. And so then it's like, for me, I got into like Platonism, and then from Platonism, orthodoxy. And once I made that connection, it was like game over. So if you have the philosophical background, you can do that. Lived experience is one way a lot of us got here, because that's the thing, is not everybody's a philosopher, and you don't have to be to get to orthodoxy. So that's why I was trying to focus more on the heart, because I think that's what unites all of us, whether it be through philosophy or drug experiences or whatever it may be.
Well, and the heart is how like countless Christian peasants for the last 2,000 years have been saved, because they couldn't even read some of them. Like,
right, exactly.
It's all through going through, experiencing it in the heart, showing up, even if you're hungover in a bad mood, you show up. Even if you don't get in the communion line, you're there. And or standing in the dang icon corner and trying to pray, even though your kids are screaming. And
okay, who's this Nathaniel? Get rid of this dude.
There's another thing that's going on right now a lot too, with that people who are doing this and encountering entities are encountering them as demonic, and that's driving people to it too. And you're seeing lots of Muslims have like dreams and visions of Christ right now. So this isn't all just, there's another place from the heart, another place that isn't just facts.
Yeah. Next super chat comes from Zach Flayton. Shout out to you, brother. He throws in $20. That
shout out to my godfather. That's my godfather right there. That's my boy.
He's the father of my goddaughter.
Yep. We're all St.
We're all God family.
Dang.
We out here.
He throws in $20 and says, some shekels for having big brain homies up in the stream tonight. Well, thank you so much, Zach. God bless you, brother. Thank you very, very much. And then the last super chat comes from John Connor. I wonder if it was the John Connor saving us from the AI Terminator. Throws in $50. Thank you so much, John Connor. He says, down with the machines. Praise the Lord and pass the 40-watt plasma rifles.
You think he made that account just for that post?
I could do what?
I think he made that account just for that post.
I think he did.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, John Connor. And then I want to give a special shout out to everybody who became a member tonight. Special shout out to Sam Vagyok for becoming a YouTube member. God bless you. God bless Orthodox Centurion. God bless Baron Strawberry, Beyond Seraphim, Young Old Boy, Spartan Up North, Survivor Foe, and Pure Blood Anglo-Christian. God bless you guys. Thank you so much for becoming YouTube members. Shout out to Aline Mora for her super chat. Again, AI is an echo of the human collective mind. It's dead. We can't find truth and life in death. So true. Shout out to my godson there. That was Joshua Schmidt before he hopped on the stream. And then shout out to Thomas Aesthetics, who threw in $1.99. And we got one more, the cat down the road. The gentleman that just on, he says, the name that can be named is not the eternal name.
What is that? Because he said that when he signed off as well. Is that like
it's a saying from Lao Tzu. Okay. So it's talking about the apophatic nature of the Tao. Which again, we would say we agree orthodoxy's theology is based on that. It's called the energy essence distinction. We don't put a name to the essence of God. And that's really what Lao Tzu is talking about. Obviously, for rational apprehension, everything has to be named. And just because the Trinity has names like the Father, the Holy Spirit, Jesus Christ, the Logos, doesn't mean we're making cataphatic descriptions on the essence of who God is. There's a major distinction there. Yeah, exactly. So Great point. And so the cat down the road, we actually don't disagree with the idea that the name that can be named is not the eternal name. That's what orthodoxy is based on. That's actually, like you pointed out, differentiates it from Kabbalah and Islam and other different faiths.
A cat down the road, you're closer to us than you think. Just
Exactly, man.
Swing on by a parish, buddy. It's really nice. Coffee hour.
I know. We'd love to have you, brother. Check out
it's good stuff.
God bless you, man. No hard feelings. We appreciate you coming on in a den of lions, and and voicing an opinion that you knew was probably going to get a critical response. So God bless you, bro.
I apologize. I got a little heated too. I think I get a little angry with my old views sometimes.
I thought you kept it cool. I didn't pick up on too much anger. I thought it was just a passionate response.
I couldn't say the same thing though.
Well,
I have a question for you.
What's up, bro?
So we're also told not to throw all this stuff out online. Like we're not supposed to cast pearls before swine because they could pick them up and they can rend you and rend the temple again. So, but it's like we're not supposed to share the secrets, but it's like beyond the mysteries and this epiphatic nature of God and this mystery of the sacrament that's out there in the open for everybody. It's like,
all
of our information is out there already.
But I don't think that's the pearl. I think you're hitting on it with the Eucharist. Okay. That's why it takes a year to become Orthodox. That's the mystery. The mystery is the church. The mystery isn't the information.
Okay. So it's like. This all worries me, like having our information, because like everybody has you have entire teams of scholars trying to like revision our stuff.
Fordham University.
I know. Yeah,
it's
like
unreal.
Like, and one of the guys I was bringing up to Jay when I talked to him about this, I was talking to you about some of these people that are doing this, in this adjacent to Peterson and stuff, where this AI stuff is going down, and some of the thinkers they're using, they're revisioning Christianity. Like one of the guys, someone's like I pushed him a little bit, like instead of answering back ever, he'll go to like some Catholic Jordan Daniel Wood bringing up revisioning Saint Maximus to make God contingent on creation, right? Like, now do you think with the AI there's a danger of it mining all our arguments against us?
No.
Well, I mean, it's going to try. Someone's going to try to do that, but will it succeed? No.
If orthodoxy is true, then no fuzzy logic algorithm is going to figure out an argument to defeat it.
They could come up with really convincing lies and tricks and smoke and mirrors, sure, but people have been doing that. Like we had the iconoclasm, Arianism, all these. Everyone's been doing that. Protestantism now.
Nestorianism.
It's just one more
Papalism.
thing. One more L for orthodoxy to like rip off of someone's forehead and like staple to the trophy rack. Like, all right.
I think the more you learn about church history, that's another thing. It's like, maybe you're not a philosopher, but just study maybe church history and to see like how the hell did orthodoxy make it to 2023 intact? Like seriously.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any
our
sense.
Holy Fathers, Lord Jesus Christ.
It's because it's the true faith. It's because it's led by the Holy Spirit, and Christ said that the gates of hell will not prevail against His church. And it's like you look, and clearly that's Orthodoxy is the one church that's still here that hasn't changed. So I agree with what Jose said in regards to that. If it's the true faith, nothing can stop it. And I don't think any information is our enemy. So what I'm worried about is the embodiment. So my enemy is the person who's going to put the gun to my head, who's going to threaten my children, who's going to force me to get the jab. Like that's where I see the enemy. And I think that's coming. And the FEMA camps, all like the violent embodiment of this system is what I'm worried about. I don't, in regards to information, I don't see that as a general threat.
Worry about their ability to hide that information.
Well, what information are you worried about specifically?
No, right now I'm saying I'm worried about them being able to hide the information about people.
Oh, you cut out, brother. I couldn't hear you. What'd you say? You hide what?
To hide the information they're doing to people, so there's no born of the martyrdom. or to, you know, shut you down and put you in timeout where like you're just on, you can't get on the subway and they've shut down transportation, but nobody sees what's going on and nobody wants to look because they don't want to get involved and it's not on any news. Like,
right. Well, honestly, I think that's coming.
I do too.
Yeah,
And
I
to
think
that,
that's really coming. And so, go ahead, Ivan.
I think this is a question I asked my spiritual father, and because I tried to write about Christian topics, and he told me, like, do not give pearls to swine, and I asked him about it, and I think the real reason is a spiritual reason, in the sense that you're giving yourself into what you're doing. So like when you're having a personal, let's say you wouldn't marry a woman who would be like your enemy. In the same sense, you should not like participate in the system in such a way that will already compromise you in the future. So if you're worried about being shut out by the system, it will come because you already made a mistake previously. Like if you're in that situation, so that you already given the pearl to the swine. But I think about it more in a spiritual sense. Like if you establish a relationship with a woman, you become one flesh, and then let's say, for example, you become a priest, and then she divorces you, then like you lost
can't be a priest. Yeah.
It's a very, like, you put yourself in a very precarious situation. Like that's the thing. It's the same with the veils with women. Like the reason why women should wear veils in church is not just because they would appeal to us sensually, but it's also to protect them, to protect the mystery from spiritual realities. So it's for them not to be invaded by demons, if that makes any sense.
No, that does. I'm aware that the veils and the head coverings to not tempt the angels. So that makes a lot of sense.
It would also be the, we talk about our martyrdom online not being seen or something, but before, most martyrs were made and their stories were still being able to be told before we even had electricity and mass communication and TVs. The centurions who killed these people would convert and see their witness. So the people who read the logs of, we sent the AI to drone strike this guy. This data. Oh, well, but look, the last shot is of these people praying as the drone's like 10 meters off of them. That alone could do it.
Exactly. And the person flying the drone sees that,
and they're like,
and they's like, I can't fly the drone anymore.
Real
I just killed people
Longinus
that were
moment.
praying.
Longinus with the Logitech controller instead of the spear.
Yeah.
But
the physical persecution, I think, is coming. I'm expecting it to some degree, but
I worry. And I worry when I say I worry more like in a way that we should be prepared for it, right?
Right. More of a
wise as serpents and gentle as lambs. But the soft totalitarianism is like a big one to me.
Yeah. Well, we're already inside that web.
I'm getting the bat signal that my kid wants to play Age of Empires with me, so I can't refuse. Take it easy, gentlemen.
Well,
have a good night.
Tell Bruce Wayne I said hi.
Yes. All right. Bye.
All right. God bless, brother. Thanks for joining tonight.
God bless, guys.
No,
God
Josh.
bless you and the family.
See you, Joseph. Take it easy. I'll text you.
You got it. All
right, gentlemen. What a great conversation, man. I did not plan on being on here for 3.5 hours. That's a solid hour over what I expected. But this was great, man. This was really good. Thank you guys for hopping on. Ivan, Ed, AC, Frankie D, Jose, God bless you guys. Thanks for hopping on, man. I really appreciate it. Shout out to all the super chatters and shout out to all the new members. Shout out to Slowboy Whiteboard for gifting 5 additional memberships today. Hope everybody enjoyed the stream, and I will be back Thursday for a much more philosophical stream debunking Christians promoting transhumanism, artificial intelligence, and silicon sages. So I'll be back for that Thursday evening, and I'll see you guys then. Gentlemen, is there anything you want to leave with the people before hopping off here?
Oh, I was gonna ask, how do you become a member of the YouTube? The YouTube
you just go down to there should be a money sign. And you click that, and it should be a membership option.
Oh, okay. Cool.
And then just FYI, it's a little bit different than from the website membership. Frankie D, I don't know if you're a website member. That's for the exclusive content and stuff like that. That has a 3-tiered membership. The $25 a month is the premium, and we have like a meeting tomorrow night. So those are for 2 exclusive premium meetings plus the fitness meeting the first Monday of every month, and then all the videos that I have privately up there. But that's different from the YouTube. The YouTube is just the emojis and the community and stuff like that. But just FYI. But that's only $5. Anybody want to leave us on? Sound like somebody was going to say something?
Yeah. One thing you'd asked me a couple months ago when I was on about what would you recommend for someone going in, about to get married. And so I actually ran the numbers in terms of what financially would be the advice that I would give to a man who's about to get hitched.
Yes, sir. I
And
need
so
that.
I ran all the numbers, and actually it's pretty simple. Christian Health Share Ministries, such a better deal than
Christian
insurance.
Health Share Ministries.
So yeah, so look up like Samaritan's Purse, and there are others too. But yeah, so I'll put in perspective, like with insurance through my place of employment. My first son, he cost me close to 16 grand, and my daughter cost me almost 20. And that was with 2 NICU stays, etc. But with those Christian Health Share Ministries, each would have cost me about $1,200 after all the refunds get processed. Likewise, it does put a huge emphasis, especially huge emphasis on like negotiating for cash prices, etc. So it really does bring the costs down, and you save a ton on like premiums, because the portion, like the health share you pay each month, is way less than what decent insurance will cost you, even through an employer who subsidizes. So like that's been the biggest financial impact for me. And I wish I had done it before, because I would have saved like, $35,000. So plus, premium savings too. So I do strongly recommend looking into that. And, as a rule, if you want to make sure that essentially day one, when y'all are legally married, you got the marriage certificate, immediately put her on. So that way, whenever a kid comes along, you're covered. It's part of the plan.
Wow.
Yeah, that is the most like biggest way to save money, especially because we're working on saving as a house, on getting a house. And when you take those kind of hits, it hurts a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. That hurt me big time. So I'm on the website right now. Thank you so much, dude. I had no idea about Christian Healthcare Ministries.
Yep. Strongly recommend.
Well, thank you, bro. That was some good words of wisdom, man. That was out to the world, and I definitely am going to be taking you up on that. I'm going to be signing up. Anybody else got anything they want to say? AC, Ivan, Ed?
Nah, just good night and God bless.
All right. Well, thank you guys. God bless all of you. God bless your families, and God bless everybody that's out there watching. And like I said, I will be back Thursday night. So until then, as always, God bless.